Ian, there are 3 reasons why I'm deeply humbled and overjoyed to connect with you today on Sunday Sips. The first of which, you are the engineering wizard who took Moon Surgical's Maestro from white paper concept to a V&V ready commercial robotic solution in under a year. 1,000 plus components on your name, or with your name on the parts file. And your fingerprints can also be found on Johnson & Johnson's Ottava, Medtronic's Sonicision, Abbott's HeartMate 2 and 3, and countless MedTech innovations that heal on a global level. And this brings us to the second reason I'm so humbled and filled with joy for today's discussion. While you have the uncanny ability to make the impossible possible, both at large strategics and stealth mode startups, it is the halo effect that comes from your kindness, authenticity, and creative spark that I find most compelling, making you one of the most sought-after technical talents in surgical robotics. Over the last decade, you've established Nerdian, a design house collective that carefully crafts transformative medical innovations. And it's so wild to film today's episode in your San Francisco studio, surrounded by $500,000 worth of creative capabilities, a design engineer's sanctuary and forge. Now, the third and final reason that I'm so humbled and filled with joy is because I have no idea where this conversation will take us. I've prepared plenty of questions that will dabble across your experience scaling engineering teams, building epic surgical robots, and operationalizing your business Nerdian, but I'm genuinely curious about where we go from here. Ian McEachern, you have a remarkable big brain, so it is a privilege to officially welcome you to the Sunday Sips podcast, where I carefully curate the latest big brain insights worth sipping on. So that's all I got.
Thank you so much. That's so kind.
No, I mean it. It's been absolutely incredible just getting to know you and hearing your story and spending all of yesterday and most of today with you. You are just such a remarkable creative on so many levels. And we've already had pieces of the conversation that'll happen today naturally, but it's really cool to see where this will all take us, because I think for folks to come into proximity with your story is just absolutely beautiful. So
wonderful. I'm so grateful.
Thank you
so much.
Well, and thank you for building everything.
Of course, yeah.
As well. Hey friend, it's the pretentious engineer from the future, and I've been deep in this edit over the last couple weeks, and you are in for a treat. Now, Ian McEachern is a phenomenal global leader and engineer working in robotics and complex mechanism contexts, and he flew me out to San Francisco for one of my first business trips as an entrepreneur, and I got to explore the city, so you'll see a little 360 walkthrough below, which is fun. He built me a robotic podcasting studio, and it was just a joy to get to hear a bit more of his story and learn about Nerdian, the business that he's building, and the impact he's having in our industry. And all that said, I know you're incredibly busy, so I want to share 3 reasons why I think it's worth sticking around for this conversation. First of which, Ian is a MedTech design engineering wizard, and his fingerprints can be found on Moon Surgical's Maestro, Johnson & Johnson's Ottava, Abbott's HeartMate 2 and 3, which are left ventricle assist devices, so they help pump blood into the heart, as well as Medtronic's Sonicision, which was super nostalgic to me because I spent a large portion of my career on Ethicon's Harmonic, which is a competitor ultrasonic blade for surgery. Number 2, we're going to go through Ian's entire end-to-end journey, starting in his father's jewelry shop, where he learned how to make custom jewelry and to craft that, called goldsmithing. And then eventually he traveled across the US for different opportunities, landed in a lot of really compelling startups, and eventually founded Nerdian, where he scaled up a team, and this team has a deep reverence for the craft of creation, of coming alongside different design teams, whether they're startups or large strategics, and helping progress meaningful innovation on their behalf. And they can go from a white paper concept, in some cases, to a high fidelity prototype on the order of weeks and months, as opposed to the order of months and years, or if you're Johnson & Johnson, a decade to get a robot out, which is a loving dig towards my prior employer. And the third reason I think you're going to enjoy this conversation is that if you're an R&D CTO, VP, director, or lead design engineer, you just need to get a pen and paper out and start taking notes, because we waffle through so many unique case studies, and there's so many moments of pain and wisdom you can glean from to find multiple year shortcuts on some of your projects. So I highly suggest you lean in and focus. And at the end of this discussion, if you could stay till the end, I'm going to synthesize Ian's 5 big brain ideas, and the last one is absolutely fantastic. So I appreciate you, friend. Thank you for being a part of my journey as a creator in MedTech, for sharing this with some of your friends. And I have a couple words from sponsors of today's episode, and you can sip on that. So hey, friend, this episode of Sunday Sips is caffeinated by me. Now, for those of you who don't know, I've been an all-in entrepreneur for the last 2 years, following a messy exit from a decade-long career in surgical robotics at J&J, and I have recently founded my company, Moonlight Medical, where we pursue ideals that keep us up at night. And I do stealth mode consulting for different MedTech startups, helping them bridge from clinical insights all the way to a commercially viable product. And the main emphasis of our work is to elevate the voices of clinicians and the patients they're so desperate to serve, as well as taking greater risks as organizations in order to progress meaningful innovation on their behalf. So in 60 seconds or less, I just want to share a little bit about what we do at Moonlight Medical. The first of which is we help triangulate clinical unmet needs, leveraging Stanford biodesign methodology. So during my time in Japan, when I directed front-end innovation, I immersed in 40 plus procedures, did post-operative interviews with clinicians, and there's a really robust methodology through Stanford biodesign to understand these unmet needs and filter them to figure out what you should prioritize as an organization, whether you're large strategic or a startup. The second piece is we're looking at technical feasibility. I worked as a design engineer, robotics controls engineer, and systems engineer on Otava, which was J&J's robotics play. So I do a lot to bridge that technology towards that clinical unmet need. And then the third piece is commercial viability. Spending time in Japan amongst our sales and marketing organization, I've just learned a lot around what it actually takes to develop and commercialize a product that the sales team is enthusiastic to commercialize. And a lot of times folks think a good product will sell itself, which is complete garbage. Basically, I think the corners of this innovation trifecta are where startups go to die. You might have a surgeon founder who has a great clinical unmet need, but no idea of a technical roadmap or how to build a business. You might have a large strategic with a front end effort that has a current tech and they're trying to push it towards that next stage, but they are out of alignment with clinical unmet needs, or they don't know their regional commercialization strategies. Or if you immerse in a regional marketing organization like I did in Japan, you might have a team that's leading from commercial. They're frustrated with upstream R&D and they're just trying to push something different into their market, but they're out of touch with the clinical unmet needs and have the technical roadmap necessary to make that happen. And then the last thing I help with is, after triangulating this, is the Sunday Sips podcast. So I help founders and CEOs increase their brand presence so that they can attract top tier talent, but also investment from VCs or create bidding war scenarios if we're in the M&A process, which is fantastic. But all that said, I'm happy you're here. Thank you for investing in this episode and looking forward to whoever the next sponsor of Sunday Sips is. Hey, it's the pretentious engineer from further in the future. If you'd like to learn a bit more about Moonlight Medical or some of the services I offer, I actually have a longer pitch deck that goes through the Sunday Sips podcast and shares a bit about the founder's dilemma, what I do with Sunday Sips in more detail, and it's all captured within a quick wait list. So I'll share a link to this Sunday Sips waitlist. It also assesses your podcast readiness if you'd like to be a guest in the future, and you could come and check this out. But appreciate you. Now on to the next sponsor of Sunday Sips. Here's a bit of confetti as you keep enjoying the show. Today's episode of Sunday Sips was shot on the RPB Mark I design from Nerdian, and it includes multiple linear actuators that can expand out of a Pelican case, so I can set up multiple cameras, as well as these beautiful light up rocket launcher switches and integrated electronics. Him and his team put this together in under 3 weeks, which is crazy, from a pipe dream kind of idea into a podcast studio I could roll through airport security with and interview future guests. And I'm so thankful for Ian to pull this together, to do all this design work, to just demonstrate his careful crafting abilities in the complex electromechanical systems. And I'm excited to reveal the Mark II in a future episode. So anyway, you can sip on that and let's get to the discussion with Ian McEachern.
That one's going to keep going because I have a part that's not there. Let me put this one part that's missing. God damn. So happy. And you know, it's taken me 25 years to be able to have something work when I need. Never does that happen. Thank you for witnessing the first time my whole career something worked when it was supposed to. Please come more often.
We'll demo the podcast studio you made as well. And a quick note to viewers of this podcast, I'll do everything I can to make this conversation as accessible as possible. So you can speak 100% at your level. And for folks who aren't as deep on manufacturing, 3D printing, MedTech, I'll film a second Sips episode where I go through and pull up videos and sketch things on my tablet so you could just run at your level. Yeah, and I find that works out really well. And I love the second episodes because I get to like geek out and sketch.
Definitely.
Okay, so first, do you have any thoughts before I jump in?
No, thank you so much. It's been wonderful having you here. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So this is kind of my first question. So our initial connect, oh shoot, I didn't prepare for this the way that I wanted to. Give me 1 second. Because I had a text from you that I wanted to read.
Oh. No worries.
It's been fun trying to figure out all the debug for this setup. Okay, I got it. Just got to scroll through that quick. All right, so our initial connection lies at the convergence of Johnson & Johnson's surgical robotics play in Ottawa and Amazon Third Shift. And for folks who don't know, as I've doubled and tripled down on my own entrepreneurial ventures, I've pushed boxes at Amazon for the last 10 months to provide my family extended burn rate so that we could get settled. And after recovering from a brain tumor, your mother finished her career as a water spider at Amazon, just like me.
Yes.
And you sent me the first DM on LinkedIn in our relationship, which I pulled up on my phone that I wanted to read and then build a question around. But you shared just like a cold message that was such an encouragement to me. Hey, Joe, I admire your grit and dedication to family. We have a lot in common beyond that, and we should chat sometimes. And it was so simple, and this little kindness has led us to where we are right now, where we've been building together for the last 2 days. You've been working on this for almost 3 weeks. I've been doing all the content and the creative. And I'm curious, like, why you have so much passion around MedTech and how your mother's recovery from a brain tumor has also fueled your innovative spirit in these spaces.
Absolutely. Growing up, my grandfather, I spent a lot of time with him, and he wasn't an engineer by training, but he was an engineer. He worked at Lockheed Martin when I knew him, and as I grew up, I learned his whole story, and he really started as an Okie. They lost their farm during the Great Depression, and he came to California to pick fruit, and then signed up with the Navy submarine service because they paid the best, and this was all before World War II, and then he was part of World War II. He was part of everything that came after that, and then he was a part of the Apollo program. And so for him, watching his ability to lift his entire family and our entire family up out of that poverty just by being an honest, hardworking person and learning new skills that are valuable has always really stuck with me. And I've always just wanted to use my skill set to the best of my ability because he had come so far in his life. And I feel like I owe it to him and my other family members to go as far as I can with what I have.
Yeah. And why have you landed in MedTech specifically? Like, what led you into that aspect of innovation?
It's so interesting. When I graduated from engineering school, I thought I wanted to be a race car mechanic. And so I thought I was going to go to race car Formula One school. And then my now wife, then girlfriend, was going to graduate school at NYU. And I just put everything I had in my truck and drove to New York from Colorado. And my dad says I had to see about a girl, like the Good Will Hunting movie. But I did, and it worked out.
Okay.
But in New York, I didn't even have a computer, so the next day after I arrived there, I walked down to the Yonkers Public Library and got on Craigslist and was just looking for a job. And I found a job at Jarvik Hart with Dr. Robert Jarvik, and he was looking for a mechanical engineer right out of school who had CNC machining and also jewelry making experience. And I had both. I had that exact CNC machine in the back of my truck, and I knew all the jewelry making equipment because my dad and mom, my dad's a master jeweler, and my dad and mom ran a jewelry store for my whole life. And so I just fell into the industry there, knowing everything. I had every tool that he needed, or the ability to use every tool that he needed. And so he hired me on the spot, and I started the next day. And I worked directly with Dr. Jarvik, designing and building LVADs, blood pumps, artificial hearts, and I learned a lot from that experience.
Yeah, and can you help, because I still don't fully understand, like, what is an LVAD?
Oh, sure, yeah. An LVAD is a left ventricular assist device, so it's basically half of your heart. The human heart pumps to the left side, the left side of the human heart pumps to your whole vasculature, and then the right side pumps to your lungs. And so when you're looking at replacing a heart, a lot of times most of the pumping function is on that left side. So we can get away with just adding to the native heart function on the left. And so it's basically an artificial heart, a little blood pump that pumps 6 liters a minute of blood when the human heart can't.
Yeah, and you have one.
Yeah,
right?
we have one here. We have some parts from one here and a small child with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is actually the rotor from a Jarvik 2000 blood pump that we made while we were there, and many, many hundreds of these passed through my hands in the Jarvik clean room and then on to surgeons to implant.
So like walk me through this design and why it is the way it is, because it's shiny and curved and I don't understand it.
Yes.
And this would fit inside a barrel, right?
Yes.
So we have one over here, we'll show it in a minute.
Exactly. This fits inside a barrel, and this actually spins at 6,000 to 8,000 RPM. And the amazing thing is it doesn't blend or hemolyze the blood. And that's the real secret part is, I always say pumping blood is like pumping oatmeal. It's a non-Newtonian fluid, and you can't burst the white cells, the red cells, and then of course the plasma is in there as well. And so when we design these parts, they need to be low shear stress. So we'll do like CFD or other analysis, and we need to keep the shear stresses low while still keeping the pumping performance and efficiency high. And so we have trade-ups like the tip distance from the tip of the blades to the barrel, and sometimes you might want to make that as small as possible to get better pump performance, but that at the same time gives you more hemolysis. So we're constantly making these trade-offs between engineering optimization and then optimizing for pumping in the human body. And the other amazing thing with these is they actually have blood-wetted jewel bearings. So they're jewel bearings that are ceramic that are a lot like what's in a watch. Really? And but they're blood-wetted and cooled by the blood as it flows over the entire
because it's spinning, you said 6,000 cycles per second. And then you said it's magnetic as well?
Yes, so this entire rotor has a magnet embedded in it, and then the outer casing has the motor stator. And so this is actually acted upon by the motor directly. So these things actually only have one moving part, which is this.
Oh my gosh, that's so awesome. So what other challenges did you have actually like manufacturing those?
One of the big challenges is we have thrombus. And so any kind of crack or any inconsistency on the surface will be an area where thrombus can form. So all these titanium parts have to be mirror polished to the highest polishing specifications. And so even the tiniest little scratch or little ding during the assembly process means you have to start all over with new parts. And the other piece is it's all hermetically sealed within that. So you have to deal with the polishing, the laser welding, the hermeticity, and get those all done in the right order.
Yeah, so this looks like one component, but there's actually multiple components and welds that occur.
Yeah, and it's also machined to be concentric, extremely concentric, precisely. And then the other piece is it's balanced. So this whole thing actually goes on a balancing machine, and then we balance it so it's rotationally balanced.
Like a bike tire?
Like a bike
but
tire.
Like way more precise.
But way more precise, exactly.
This is so cool.
And that's actually the final step before you do the final assembly.
Are the fins also, I'm assuming they're welded on, right?
They're one part. So there's actually two parts. There's like a core and then a cap. And the fins are CNC machined 4-axis directly in that part.
So they're on like this barrel basically,
exactly.
Machined down onto it.
And then a magnet goes inside, you assemble the whole thing, and then you magnetize it all.
Yeah, I'll take like a really nice picture and overlay this on the podcast so people can see it. This is beautiful. And then this is, I have to keep them separate.
Yes.
So this is the full system, right?
Yeah, so this is actually one of the child size pumps. So when I was working at Jarvik Heart, there's a program called the NIH Pumpkin Program, and so they wanted to make LVADs for child and infant. So these are miniaturized versions of the already miniaturized LVAD. And so this pump pumps a little bit less. It's more like 4 to 5 liters a minute, same pressures, but it's quite a bit smaller to be able to implant in like an adolescent or child-sized heart. And so this is actually the full pump, and you can see the microsphere coating here. This entire pump up to here would be embedded in the apex of the heart, and then the inlet right here just pokes right into the left atrium. And then the outlet here.
This is part of it as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's a sewing cuff that you sew onto the heart, and then this goes through it. And so this was actually one of the pumps that we used for that NIH Pumpkin program. And they had several successful animal studies, and I think a few human implants of this as well.
So you started doing mechanical design on this or machining from the jewelry background?
All of the above, yeah, exactly. And so at Jarvik Heart is fully vertically integrated, and so titanium came in one end, and then artificial hearts came out the other. And
So
one of the
cool.
unique things of the way that Jarvik had his business structured is mechanical engineers like myself did all those things. And so we would be in charge of machining, design, assembly, ship it out the door, and we would have to close that loop continuously. And so I spent a lot of time in the in-house machine shop, which was on the 15th floor in Manhattan, actually machining parts for this, refining them, and then refining the design as we did so.
Yeah. And this is in a clean room too, you were saying?
Yeah, the final assembly for all these needs to be done in a clean room because when you put it all together, even the tiniest little bit of debris on the bearings will cause a lot of problems. And then directly after we assemble it, we put it in a Tyvek pouch and sterilize it. So
I gotta take a whole bunch of pictures of this. And did this make it to market? We were
no,
talking a
that
little bit
didn't
about
make it
this.
to market. It was part of the NIH Pumpkin program, and
Yeah.
they're really kind of like orphan devices, and so there really isn't enough market to justify bringing it all the way to market. But that's why they had the NIH program to encourage development.
Oh my gosh, this is so cool. So you started working at Jarvis Hart, and that was in New York?
New York, yeah,
so
Manhattan.
You drove out from Colorado to New York with
Yeah.
your mill and the back of your
Yeah.
vehicle and got that gig. And then that gave you an intro to Abbott, right? Or not Abbott, what was the company?
Thoratech, yeah.
Thoratec. Okay, so if you could talk through True Heart, or shoot, I forgot what it's called. My notes are all scattered. Thoratec got acquired by Abbott eventually, but the product
It's HeartMate 2 and HeartMate 3.
2 and 3.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's similar unmet need, right? Was it still also?
Yeah. HeartMate 2 is an LVAD as well, and actually a competitor of Jarvik Heart. And Thoratec headhunted me and brought my wife and I out to California to work on what they called FilVAS, which is the fully implantable left ventricular system, which would be an LVAD but without the percutaneous cable. So everything's implanted, and then you have a wireless charger, just like you would with a pacemaker or something like that. And so we were part of a very large program to work on that, and then was also part of for refining HeartMate 2. There was a big event that happened when we were there called the thrombus investigation. There was a big article in New England Journal of Medicine. So we did a lot of really good work just investigating the details of thrombus formation, how to make something truly hemocompatible, and how that interacts with the pump design. And then we were able to leverage those learnings into future pumps like HeartMate 3. And so one of the wonderful things that I saw at my time at Thoratec was the release of HeartMate 3, which is now kind of the pump in the market and has been implanted in tens of thousands of people with great success.
So cool.
And it's just really wonderful to see that. And personally, having met patients there and having them personally share with you their stories was really, really impactful, especially having come from Jarvik when I worked there. It was very early days in that industry. And so seeing that industry come full circle to be a real product that's delivering real value was really, really, really meaningful.
And thrombic is just like clotting of the blood?
Thrombus, yeah, they're blood clots. Yep.
Okay, so basically you have different constraints when you're putting materials within the blood flow of making sure it's not
and you
clotting
can create
around
clots or strokes because a clot will travel down and
up
create
to
a
the
stroke.
brain.
And that's really the biggest adverse event in these pumps.
Does that occur even with the design as it is today?
Yes, most patients have to be on anticoagulants, systemic anticoagulants. So.
Okay, and it's just because blood knows there's something. Well, knows it doesn't have
Yes.
a brain, but like it can detect there's a foreign body that's
Yes,
trying to clot
the way it's been described to me, blood is an organ on its own. It's doing magical things all the time. It's doing chemistry and biology. And the body is constantly trying to encapsulate foreign objects in the body and get them out, no matter where they are. And in the bloodstream is no different.
Okay. So titanium's the best shot you have, and you have to keep
Titanium's our best shot. Yeah, titanium's the magic
you
material.
have to polish it.
Yes, and you have to polish it by hand.
So if there's cracks or any kind of like surface imperfections, that is still...
Then a little red blood cell will attach to that, and then proteins will grow on that, and then
it'll
more
just keep
proteins. And
swelling.
then, exactly.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm guessing like adverse events, you said with blood clot that becomes a stroke.
Yeah.
Or heart attack if it's fully blocked out.
Yep.
Or like having to remove the whole system.
Yeah, sometimes they have infection because there's a percutaneous cable. So
Yeah.
sometimes they have infection that migrates its way up to the pump. And in those cases, they do what's called a pump exchange, where they exchange the pump. And that's the other beautiful thing about these things is they're not a limited commodity like a replacement heart from a human.
Yeah, where you're back on a wait list.
Exactly, where you're back on a wait list. We make these in a factory all day, and so it's not that big a deal to. I mean, it is a painful surgery, but it's not. It's possible to switch them out.
Hey, pretentious engineer here. I know you didn't ask, but this episode of Sunday Sips is caffeinated by Kinetic Vision. Throughout my decade-long career in surgical robotics, I've worked with many MedTech consultants, and without question, Kinetic Vision stands in a league of their own. They masterfully curate the art of science, accelerating innovation through advanced technology. Their capabilities, creativity, and candor have consistently made them my most trusted digital external innovation partner. We've collaborated across continents and time zones, tackling challenges and unconventional ideas and taking them from white paper to fully functional MVPs. Their contributions, from early concept generation to usability studies, test automations, digital twin creation, VR simulations, and beyond, have been pivotal in moving breakthrough ideas towards real-world clinical use. My partnership with Kinetic Vision has been a decade in the making, and it's an honor to introduce you to their world-class capabilities. If you're facing technical challenges beyond what you can do in-house, I trust Kinetic Vision to help you find the path forward and empower you to innovate on behalf of global patients and the clinicians you serve. Finding the right partner to drive digital transformation within your organization and product pipeline is critical to the long-term success of a MedTech business. So check out the link in the description below to take the Digital External Innovation Readiness Assessment, which includes a waitlist for experiencing a discovery session with Kinetic Vision. It'll take you less time than it takes to finish your coffee or tea, and it'll provide you with greater clarity on if Kinetic Vision is right for you. Anyways, you can sip on that, and let's get back to Sunday Sips. Gosh, that's so cool. Okay, I have lots of notes. This is Ian, thank you for the time with all this. This is so awesome. So I know from Abbott, somehow you ended up back, or you were in the Bay with Abbott, then you ended up in Colorado, then you ended up back in Bay or Sacramento.
It was Sacramento, yeah.
Yeah, so you used a term with me, which resonates a lot with my journey of like 12 moves in 1 year to get out to J&J, of being an economic refugee. Like, just walk me through the movements across different industries and how you navigated that with family and locations.
Yeah, so I already covered, we went to New York, and then my wife finished her graduate school, and my salary there didn't even pay our rent. And so we were quite literally living off of her student loans. And so that had to come to an end. And we moved back to Colorado, and I started working with a consulting company called Evergreen Research, and they were a spinoff of Kobe Labs. And Kobe Labs is big in hemodialysis. They kind of architected modern hemodialysis, and they decided they couldn't innovate in-house. They needed to design a new blood pump, so they made a spin-off organization that designed a blood pump in 2 years, and they were successful. And after that happened, they didn't want to shut it down. They just let it keep going, and that became Evergreen Research. And that's what I worked at. And the project I worked on there was Outset Medical's Tableau kidney dialysis machine, which was a really wonderful program. Architected and designed the whole thing. I flew from Colorado to Sunnyvale to personally hand the CD off to them back in the days when we transferred data that way. And that's when, at that point, I got headhunted by Thoratech, which moved us out to California. And then worked for Thoratech for quite a few years. And then there was one of the foundational engineers or clinicians in that world, Dr. Richard Wampler, had an artificial heart startup that he had a few Thoratech folks that I had worked for, and in Roseville, just outside of Sacramento. And so, of course, I had to learn from Dr. Wampler. So we moved up there and did Oregon Heart up there, which was a really wonderful startup. But they only had maybe a tenth of the funding they needed to go all the way. So we were able to get to successful product, proof of concept, animal study, but they weren't able to kind of cross the bridge
do all the clinicals,
do all the clinical work, do everything. And so they shut that down, and then I just started getting calls from people to do work on the side. And so I started Nerdian and doing consulting work up in Sacramento, and I had a facility similar to this. And then it's very difficult up there to reach critical mass with just like the kind of work that I do. And so I found myself coming down to the Bay Area so often from up there that we ended up moving down here. And that's when I got sucked into the whole surgical robotics ecosystem that was bringing everybody in at the time. So.
Yeah, because Verb was the first jump.
Verb was, exactly. And so I worked at Verb for a while, and then joined Oris.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, and for context, for people that have lived under a rock in my audience and don't know Verb, Oris, or Otava, Johnson & Johnson did a crazy play in surgical robotics, originally shaking hands with Alphabet through Verily Life Sciences, which is under Google, to create Verb Surgical, which was a huge build to buy to make a surgical robotics platform. Ethicon, where I worked, was making the instruments that would go on that platform.
So we probably indirectly crossed paths over those years in my career. And then eventually we acquired Oris for I think 3.4 billion or so, which had the Monarch platform, which is an endoluminal robot for thoracic interventions. And then they also had a different table-mounted architecture that they're progressing. And then there is a big cook-off between those two platforms, and everything was brought together, and that's where Otava stands today.
Yeah.
So I guess across Verb and Oris, like if you just want to walk us into some of your experiences there, what you were building, eventually building out teams as well,
Yeah.
The kind of the problems you were solving, and maybe impressions on where J&J is going.
Yeah.
Would be fun as well.
Yeah. I had started at Verb, and I was working for a company that basically did engineering offshoring. And so I was the local representative, and then they had a whole bunch of simulation and other work that they wanted to do on the UID, the handheld device that the surgeon held to control the robot. And so through that, I learned a lot about the surgical robotics in general, also how Verb did things. And then applied and got a job at Oris as a principal engineer. And the very interesting thing about the job at Oris, my first day I walked into the lab and they had what would become Otava, at the time we called it iPlatform, in the lab trying to do surgery. And we had a metric called uptime, which was basically the amount of time that the robot was available to be used. And when I started, that uptime was very low, and the desire was to move it up and up and up. And that was my job as a principal engineer. And so they hired me because of my mechanical engineering background, but also because of my systems engineering background. I've worked as a systems engineer for many years at Thoratech. And so I was able to kind of bridge that gap. And so for the entire first month I stayed there, I never went to my desk. I'd go in and I'd go right to the lab.
Awesome.
And then I'd stay in the lab all day, and I'd leave and I'd just sit on a stool, and I learned everything. I learned everything about the lab, the surgery, the robot, the teams, the names of everybody. And I started to have opinions about how to improve things, opinions about what we can do. And some of those are robotic focused, some of those are engineering focused, some of them are process focused, some of them are workforce focused. And so what started as a principal engineer, it just kept snowballing and snowballing. And by the time I left, I had 80 people working for me through 4 managers, and I had built that entire team, moved a lot of those people here to the Bay Area, given a lot of those people their first jobs in tech, their first jobs out of the military, things like that. And those are all things I never knew that I had in me.
Yeah.
But as we went through the whole process, it was a joy. It really, really was a true joy to just teach people how to build robots and then build robots.
Yeah. And how did you, like, any new company you join, there's always an inherent risk of if that's the right step in your career. How did you help future folks kind of navigate that risk profile and understand the mission and vision of what you were building towards at Oris? Because that's when you had like recruiting. Like, how'd you bring folks in? What was your process? And just kind of settling them into culture so that they could thrive.
Yeah. It's kind of a 2-step process. I never expect anybody to do a workflow that I can't personally do. And I never expect anybody to work for me to do work that I wouldn't personally do, even from a philosophical standpoint. And so the first step is to get myself aligned with that and understand why are my values and my goals, and how is this job serving my future in my career, and internalizing that, processing that, distilling that. And then I just share that with them. And I just say, this is why this is good for me. These are the things that I can do for you as a result. And these are the things these are the reasons why I think this is a great job. And you should pick the best job available to you, even if it's not this one.
Yeah.
And it's my job to make it as appealing as possible.
That's awesome. Well, because you have folks navigating competitive offers.
Yes.
And recruiting talent in the Bay is very challenging because people lift off to other things really quickly.
And you're competing with names like Apple.
And Google.
And Nvidia. And exactly.
Yeah, so they could be anywhere, and they're taking a shot on the future of surgical robotics.
Yes, and they're really buying into MedTech too, as a career, as opposed to,
Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. And can you walk me through, again, you shared this over lunch today, just like the joy of bringing in someone out of the military and the kinds of problems you were having them solve?
Yes.
Because it was such like an uncanny fit, but I love positioning talent that way, of like the misfits and finding a space for them.
But my whole experience there, that was the scaredest I've ever been.
Really?
And because I felt I owed this person. Like, if I did not give this person a good offboarding from the military and a good onboarding into their civilian life, especially in an environment like J&J, I personally failed them.
Yeah.
And I was horrified that the first day when this person came in, and it ended up being the most rewarding experience.
Yeah.
In the military before this, they managed a whole howitzer regiment, and they had to keep everything going and keep everything fueled. And it's funny, what we were doing was the exact same thing, where we had a surgical robotics system that needed to do surgery all day, and there were all kinds of things that were broken, parts that needed to be ordered, people that needed to be organized and orchestrated. And this gentleman sat right into that role, and it was completely different, but we taught him everything about building robots, building robot arms, and he eventually built a 20-person team that's still there, still succeeding, still building robots all day. And that's deeply, deeply rewarding for me.
Well, bringing in military is so cool.
Yes.
Within our context. At Ethicon, like before pre-robotic crazy days where we were trying to play in startup world a little bit, like the culture was a little bit more relaxed. Like it's still hard to make medical devices and all the regulatory testing and everything, but there's kind of an Ethicon Cincinnati culture, right, of work-life balance and all that. And I remember there's in particular like 3 different veterans we had on different projects. What is it? Rob Sackett, Alan Parvis, and Dave Persons. And we brought them in at different points. And like the drive they have and the intensity with still like the passion, it's just a different level. Like, recruiting military is fantastic in MedTech because it just adds a different level of operational excellence that you need to move forward in intensity. And none of them were, as far as I know, like none of them were engineering backgrounds. I think Dave might have been. Like they traded their way into it.
But you give them a process and a reason to do it, and they'll take it.
And like especially a lot of them were working between like external consultants that were doing manufacturing and like complex lead times and budgets, and like they just crush it. They're like, why is everyone sitting around?
While being perfectly professional, kind.
It's a really interesting culture, so I'm glad you were able to bring one in on the Aura side. That's so cool. So you had 80 people, 4 managers under you, and then were they doing talent acquisition as well, and you were just part of the interview process?
Yes, exactly.
So you had a touch point with every like member that came in through your org.
Exactly. Yeah, everybody got interviewed by me, but a lot of the legwork was also done by a lot of them.
Okay, excellent. So that was Hava. Any other learnings from that space? Any crazy days?
A lot of surgery. So I have been witness to a lot of surgery, robotic surgery, and I learned a lot with KOLs and just being
cadaver as well.
Exactly.
And then did you also do immersions clinically? Like were you did 10 cases, or was it all in-house?
I had done that previously in my LVAD experience. Because that's really hard to simulate open heart surgery. But no, at Oris and later J&J, I think most weeks we had 3 or 4 labs, and I was in every single one of them.
That's beautiful. And all the logistics to get a lab off the ground.
Yes.
So walk me through like the worst lab experience, like everything going wrong.
Yes. The most difficult challenge we had that ended up being extremely successful was we had a problem with consistency. So we could try to do the same lab with the same equipment and get radically different results. And that's because of the whole ecosystem around this. And anybody that's been around surgery knows this. The World Health Organization has a safe surgery checklist. Anybody that flies on a plane knows that every time they take off, there's a checklist they run. And we weren't doing any of those things. And so we implemented a checklist, just a simple checklist of these are the things that we do to bring up the robot, get the lab prep, get the sample prep, get everything ready, and then these are the things we do during, and then these are the things that we do after to prep for the next day. And getting consistency, alignment around those. First of all, you write them all down, and it's 25 pages, and everybody's arguing about it. And then by the time you finish that exercise, it's 1 page, and people don't even need to do it because it's ingrained so much. And the secret is there's a concept in software engineering called do-nothing scripts. And so the idea is you write a script, and it's just a text file, batch file that says do this, and then it says did you do this, yes or no, and you just write. It's just a checklist, and you type Y or N after you do each step. And then over time, you automate each of those steps. So then rather than clicking this button, you make the software click that button. And then so we
from like lower levels of abstraction.
Exactly. And so for us, it's a way to codify all the little things in our way. of getting to that success, and then saying, oh, this piece you need to do, this piece you need to do, and here's why. And then over time, you can build on those successes and rally the troops, rally the team to say, hey, together, because you solved this and you solved this and you solved this, now our uptime is double what it was 3 weeks ago. And you can graph that, you can progress it, and you can progress that, and you can make progress predictable.
That's so cool. So that was a big problem you were navigating. Did you ever have anything crazy happen in surgery or with an animal, or just a lab completely crash out, something unrecoverable?
Yes, all the time. One of our biggest challenges is we would have different KOLs have different styles. And so we would have some KOLs that would come in and be very delicate and soft and work with our robot. And some KOLs would just break stuff all day. And the hard part is figuring out, the answer isn't just saying don't break stuff. You have to figure out, well, how much of this is their inability to use this particular system, and how much of this is on our system to be more durable for that. And threading that needle is often really,
because it's
really
all
hard.
like early developmental too.
It's
So
all
you're not
early,
at the
yeah.
fully baked robot, so you
Yes.
want them to use it as close to reality as possible.
Yes.
But they also have to feather the prototype in case you have to put it into the hands of another surgeon in back-to-back
Exactly. And
labs.
so you're constantly balancing that. And so the way we handle that, again, is have a background team solving all those problems all the time. And so we just focused on doing surgeries.
Yeah, I remember being on the instrument side and having an N of 3 and trying to do clinical lab support and just flying it out and be like, for the love of God, don't break this.
Yes.
Just please don't.
Exactly.
Because we have nothing else.
Exactly.
For
Yes.
these critical labs,
Yeah.
right? But you're trying to get through the right checkpoints. And then, you did a lot with like show and tell work.
Yes.
Right? So like walk me through how you actually would help executive leadership kind of have a pulse on what you're building towards
100%.
and keep, you had a cross-functional team across multiple sites working on this as well. So how you'd pull everyone together around those labs with tech.
Something very interesting that our team ended up being responsible for is all the live streaming of all the labs. Because again, part of that checklist is prepping the lab, getting it ready, and then part of what we did is every single lab was recorded with multiple cameras, live streamed using OBS to an internal network, so everybody in the company, especially people who had stake in the lab, could live stream and watch what was happening and directly kind of aggregate that information to their work product and connect those two. I always like to think about it as getting information across the organization without having to go up and down. Yeah. And so our team, part of that checklist, part of preparing a lab was to get all this streaming stuff ready, get it going, and we ended up learning a ton about that. And also we ended up being the people that would wire a lab for the streaming before we would do that. So as we set up a new lab, we're setting up all the equipment, setting up the telemetry, and then we also had it where the video stuff would tie with the robotic telemetry, so we could find something at a certain spot in
Beautiful.
in
So
the
you had all
lab,
the data
and
kind
then
of
tie
lined
it
up
back
together
to if something happened in the telemetry
for
of
the
the
root
robot.
cause.
Exactly.
failures.
And so we were actually doing really good root cause investigations on every incident live as it happened in the lab. And over time, the culture progressed such that initially something weird would happen. You'd have to go find that engineer and figure it out. And then over time, they were just there. Something weird would happen, and then they were watching the live stream, so they drove over from the other building and came, and then by the time there's a break in the lab, they're there fixing it. And that became the culture because they wanted to be a part of it. They wanted to be a part of this big team that was really solving these problems together. And I think that was the biggest thing to get out of that, is figuring out how to bring everybody into the lab, even though they can't all be there, and align on solving the problems together.
Yeah, there's so many times early when I was collaborating with Verb where we would be developing an instrument. I was doing robotics controls for it. I would pass that algorithm over the fence and the code, and our partners at Verb would be doing code within their world and that instrument. And then you would just, every time it broke, it was always a question of, is it the design? Is it the software? Is it Ethicon software? Is it Verb software? Lots of finger pointing. And we had no live streaming where they could just show me what's going on. Like half the time it was like pulling over a laptop and just trying to like show in a really jank way.
Yeah.
So there are so many moments where my boss would be like, you need to just get on a plane. And like tomorrow I'd be out in California and we'd have to burn it down together.
Yeah.
So to build that infrastructure for a team to collaborate on a global level is fantastic.
Yes.
And like for anything with large capital with multiple integration points, you have to bring the whole culture together in it.
100%.
So the AV side is a really beautiful skill set to have in your pocket, because
Yes.
a lot of people don't think about it.
Yes, and so many people don't realize the video stack in surgical robotics is so important as well. And so those skill sets kind of went together too, because we're always messing with the stereo vision stack and the endoscope and all that stuff. So.
Yeah, how did you sew the data together? Because you said you had telemetry data, which for folks that don't know telemetry, that's just like the kinematics, right? Of
Yeah.
like where each joint was in the arm and the device. Plus you had the software or the OR room from multiple perspectives. I'm guessing you also had surgeon console. I never actually saw one of those labs within my role. So when I
we did
supported
have surgeon
ORIS,
console, a couple on the surgeon console. Yeah.
So how are you coalescing all that data together to be able to kind of, was it only live you could see it? Was it also recorded?
Oh, it's all recorded and it's all steered. And the funny part, initially we had SneakerNet. So initially,
What's SneakerNet?
SneakerNet
you
is
could geek out with me on this.
so instead of emailing somebody, you put it on a disc and walk it to you with your sneakers, right?
Oh,
and
really?
So, yes, because the telemetry, we were recording every variable of every variable in the entire system every millisecond or something. And so the data ends up being terabytes. So at the end of a multi-hour lab, it would be terabytes and terabytes of data. And so we would have external hard drives. That was part of the checklist, is my team would plug in 3 external hard drives to the computer, and then it would live copy those as the lab goes. And then at the end of the lab, it's also part of the checklist. Somebody on my team would pick up that hard drive, and that's why we had 3. One of them went to the systems engineering team, one of them went to robotics and controls, and one of them went to the software team. Because in order to aggregate that data, if we passed it along, it would take too long just to copy it.
You weren't putting it up on a cloud or anything.
And so we had to basically just spread that data around. And then over time, of course, we built local infrastructure and NASs and everything to do it in the back end. But you have to do a bunch of data filtering before you do that on the hardware. And the software team is so caught up in just doing what they need to do for the deliverable today, you can't really do all that until you have more time. So it's a way for us to filter things. One of my favorite things
SneakerNet, that's so funny.
One of my favorite things early on is because we have different Slack channels, right? And there was the software channel and a hardware channel. And my team, we had the telemetry, and then there was some very difficult to use software tools where you could graph stuff and get like motion profiles and stuff. And we needed that to do our work. And the software team wasn't able to get to do that work to make it easy for us. And my team just figured it out. They just taught themselves all this Linux stuff and all this Python and figured it out and made it work. And then we started doing it. We started doing it as part of our process. We'd any motor that had an issue, we'd go look at the logs and we'd see, okay. And my favorite part about that is the head of software at the time wrote in the software channel, the mechanical engineers figured out how to do this, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it's so funny. Yes, we did.
So you never, for a live stream, you never had all the telemetry data in real time. You had to get it in post.
Yeah, it was all tied together. Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. That's so awesome. Data is such a hard space to innovate in.
Yes.
Like, it's really important. Like, it's why it's such a high leverage skill in our industry, as everything's moving towards cloud-based computing, coming off of physical AI, and what you can do on the hardware and what you're doing in a cloud. There's a lot of opportunities there in the future.
And that's the real value of a lot of the stuff that's out now, hardware-wise, is we can do that stuff live.
Yeah.
And 10 years ago, that's would have taken.
Just not
feasible. It's not even possible.
So cool. Awesome. All right, I have more notes. So I'm going to have a ton of questions about Maestro, which I think is beautiful. But was there was there anything between Otava and did you jump straight to Maestro, or did you go all in on Nerdian again? I forgot if you moved from J&J straight in.
I went from J&J straight to Otava, straight to Moon.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
because I was so interested in it. And some of the people that I really admired at J&J moved early to Moon. And so I kind of followed them as well. So.
Okay, that's awesome. So I guess for, again, folks who've lived under a rock who don't know anything about Maestro Moon, like what is that platform? What problem does it solve? Because Intuitive has so much of this market in robotics. Like what makes Maestro special? And then we'll go into some of your story and accolades there, which I think is wild. Perfect.
I love Maestro because it's so different than all the soft tissue laparoscopic robotic systems out there. And if I were to say what's different about Moon, it uses any instrument. You can put any endoscope in any instrument, a laparoscopic instrument, and it holds them. It acts like a surgical assistant. It'll hold the endoscope for you. It'll hold a retractor or something else for you. And then the surgeon just grabs the arms and moves them when he or she needs to move them. And so it really is a true collaborative cobot. And I really think it's one of the first cobots in surgical, surgical robotics. And so it really is, because if you watch surgical cases, oftentimes the surgeon is having an interaction with the surgical assistant and they're having to hold it. And that's not really a very easy job. It's not ergonomic at all. So it really is something where we can add a lot of value. And then it's so easy, again, with the technology we just mentioned, to add these follow-on features like Maestro will automatically follow your tooltip and automatically know what tool you have loaded. And a lot of these things are just really, really valuable when you're doing the day-to-day surgical tasks like surgeons do. And we've gotten so much feedback from surgeons that it opens up so many possibilities in staffing where they might not be able to do a surgery one night because they don't have the correct OR staffing. And this is something that really opens that up. And then it really also opens up smaller ORs. Like with a lot of the larger soft tissue robotic systems, you're building an OR around the robot. Where this is really built where it'll wheel through a standard door, powered by a standard outlet, and you can really make any OR a robotic OR just by wheeling Maestro in.
And Maestro has 2 arms on one cart, right?
Maestro has 2 arms on one cart, and both arms have extension axes. So they actually kind of, it folds up, and then you wheel it up to the bed, and then the arms extend out over there.
Yeah. That's so awesome. Yeah, I need to play with one at some
Yes.
point.
Yes.
I went to, there's a surgical congress in Chicago, and I got to play with CMR Surgical, like the Versia system, which is fantastic, and played with Intuitive DaVinci 5, and I saw Dextros there. But I want to play with Moon. Like that's on my list. So hopefully at Sages I'll get to see it.
Yes, that was one of my favorite things about working at Oris is we had a DaVinci 4 and 5. And so we got a lot of seat time. Yeah, and so I actually had a lot of seat time. You had it in
the actual...
Yeah, and
how did you all get that?
I don't really remember, but each
they
engineer was
that?
expected to spend time actually using it. And so that was really beautiful to actually really use the system.
Who finagled that? Well, I mean, at J&J, we had so many constraints trying to get one. Yep. Like I have to be careful what I disclose, but we had a lot of challenges getting on Intuitive systems because they knew the game we were playing. Yes. So it's so awesome that you were actually able to use one that consistently.
Yes.
Oh, that is beautiful. Okay, so Maestro, the highlights I have for you, and you could speak around this or expand upon it. 1,000+ components with your name on the part file. You had an incredibly lean budget. When I talk to a lot of folks in the startup space, like Moon has done an exceptional amount of work with really limited resources, which is like the moral of the story for any startup, but they've actually executed well on that. You had less than a year timeline to get a high fidelity like MVP product robot out from white paper to V&V ready. And you had to build a lean, like high leverage team. So just walk me through. You directed R&D hardware at Moon, and Maestro is like that's your hardware that you've put out, which is incredible.
Thank you.
And now they're commercializing, which is beautiful. So how did you do all that?
You
can expand upon it however you want, like the team, the mission, how you got roped into that.
I think you have to have a laser focus on doing the right things at the right time.
Yes.
And knowing what you can do later and change later and knowing what you can't. Mm-hmm. And so a great example is, I'll just walk through the process. So Maestro, when we first designed it, we knew we wanted the arms at a certain place, at a certain distance, because it had to fit into a door at a certain height. And so I designed a cart that is a certain size, and then I picked casters and worked with a caster company to define that, because those have to be locking, and that's a big part of a lot of robotic surgical systems. Is some of them have little pedestals that come down, and some of them are hydraulic. And it can be a lot of times that ends up being a real Rube Goldberg part of the system, and so knew that. And then the other interesting thing is we knew in 3D space where the arms wanted to be, and then where they needed to be when they were folded, and so then I actually. This is weird. I designed a lot of the robot around the bend radius of the robot cable for the IGUS energy chain that needs to do the unfolding, because we know we need to get X number of signals out to here. We also know we have these space constraints, and so I started to find these little pieces where we're not going to make our own custom robot cable that has a lower bend radius. We're not going to try to make our own robotic compatible caster. Things like that, where these are like lines in the sand you need to draw, and you start putting those in, and then you fill in everything else afterwards. And one of my other favorite examples of that is we call it the box. But in the center of Maestro, there's a box, a big metal box that has all the electronics in it. And when we were designing the mechanical portion of it, we didn't know what was going to go in there, but we knew that there needed to be a box. And so we just made it in an obvious place and made it at the size that we thought needed it to be. And then the first 5 or 10 Maestro systems had no custom circuit boards in them. They were all off-the-shelf automation equipment, DIN rail mounted power supplies, things like that, and they all went in the box. And then over time, now in the subsequent years, nearly all those components are being replaced, custom circuit boards, things like that. But those are all things that we didn't need to do then. And there are, of course, things that you're going to want to do as you start to make dozens, not 5, things like that. But there are also some things that you just don't need to do when you make the first 5. And so very strategically picking those and architecting those and then working on the difficult pieces first, that's the secret.
I remember working with a consultant. They're looking at taking a high-fidelity prototype. I can't disclose the work or anything. It's all stealth. But they're taking a high-fidelity prototype all the way to like FDA submission. And I was working a bid with them and somebody else. And one of the discerning factors for me was one company versus the other called out that it was like they needed to accelerate the tube sets, getting the tube sets in to do accelerated aging. And the other one just didn't see that or have that call out. Like there was many other factors that led to my discernment and like counsel on which partner or the other. But it's those little oversights on something super complex that if you don't know what you can pass off till later, you get burned by something like a tube. Can set you back a year on your clinical and your verification testing, and then that burns all your cash because you need to do another raise to fill that gap. So having the experience and the know-how of working across multiple platforms and multiple launches is like so essential.
I appreciate that.
Like even because you said casters were your long lead.
Yes.
Which no one thinks like
that was
that's
the
the
first
caster.
relationship.
Everyone's going to start doing kinematics on a robot. It's
No,
like, I need to figure
it's
out
the wheels. Yes, and I carry that relationship forward to this day. He and I are very good friends because we exactly.
It's the wheels. And it's because you're also a geek with all the moon stuff, not moon surgical, but actual like Apollo, Saturn, and with the because I've walked under the Saturn missile. Like they built all these subsystems in parallel to integrate instead of testing pieces.
One section was built at MIT, one's at Caltech, one's at JPL, and they all work together.
With no Zoom.
Yes.
No Google Meets.
No email even.
No Git repository for all their code to sync
they
together.
didn't even have jet airliners.
It's crazy. So I think having that know-how and what to sequence is so vital to the future success or failure, like crashing and burning of a startup.
100%.
And you have it, which is
I appreciate
fantastic.
that. And digging into that example is so perfect because I always call it the long pole in the tent. You want to figure out the long pole in the tent and then build the rest of the schedule around it. Because you can do a lot of work and put all this energy into figuring out a schedule of what this will be. And then the simplest thing will be ready on that date and nothing else matters. So you should just count on that date and then build the rest of your schedule to deliver on that date. And that's the best you can do.
No, that's fantastic. Well, and you did that working with me on making this podcast in a box, right? It's like figuring out what's the essential movements that have to happen to be able to have cameras splayed out and lift up. And we could have the holes cut in a box for the outlets, but the outlets don't need to be wired and empowered today. And it's being able to pass those problems on. And a lot of, say, perfectionists in the design engineering community are very uncomfortable with dragging problems along.
It goes against the nature of engineers in a lot of ways. Exactly.
But it's so essential.
It's essential.
To success. Especially moving from startup towards acquisition or strategic, right? That whole continuum of a real product that actually gets to patients.
Exactly.
You have to be able to span that.
And because in our world, the greatest success of a product is that other people are making it in large scale in perpetuity. Like that's the greatest success that I can imagine.
Oh my gosh, it's so cool. Okay. All right, so we got lean budget, less than a year. High leverage team. So how many people did you actually direct in that? Because originally you were just doing the designs and getting this thing off the ground in the architecture. When did you start pulling people into it? I know you had someone collaborating from the software side as well.
So they have
from like zero to Moon's done. What was that evolution with people and the tech?
When I started, they had about a year in on the software side.
Okay.
And they were using the off-the-shelf kind of products with the software. And then when I started, they basically got, I don't know if they call it Series A or seed money, but the money to make Maestro. And I hired a 3-person team. And so my first...
I'm just laughing because J&J hired hundreds. Go ahead, keep going. You're good.
My first hire was actually my first hire at Oris.
Oh, no
So
way.
my first hire at Oris was a wonderful, wonderful person, still a great friend, Carlos Bolivar. And he was my first hire at Oris. And he was the last person at Oris that we were allowed to steal from Verb. So he worked at
really?
Verb, and we stole him from Verb to Oris. And he was, the lawyers told us that's the last one.
It's the last one you get.
And then I'm deeply grateful for it because
Yeah.
from day one, he was teaching me, and then he helped me build that team, and do everything that we just described.
Yeah.
And so he was my first hire at Moon, of course.
Yeah, excellent.
And he's technically an aerospace engineer by training. He has a deep background in systems engineering.
Yeah, I was going to say, he sounds
And
like a
so-
systems engineer.
Yes, and so I describe him as a systems engineer that's as good at mechanical engineering as I am, but doesn't want to do it. And so the beautiful part about that is he can do all this integration, all this wonderful stuff that's really dovetails with what I do nicely. And then also, if I'm sick one day, he can fix the thing that I messed up too.
Yeah,
He can open up
He can
SolidWorks
float
and
into
put a
that.
hole in there and make and he likes to do it. Yeah. And so he and I work very collaboratively together. And so of the Maestro parts that I did not design, he did.
Really?
Yeah, on the mechanical side. And then we hired another wonderful engineer, Rohan, electrical engineer. And it was wonderful because, Rohan, here's the box. And this is everything it needs to do. And he just started filling the outside of the box with connectors all the way around.
Yeah.
And we filled it full of connectors. And then he architected everything, the compliance scheme, what goes in there, what are we picking, how does it work. There's a smart button that does all the power on, power off. There's a UPS. There's a whole bunch of stuff to get right.
What's a UPS?
Battery backup.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so uninterruptible power supply.
Oh, beautiful.
And so there's just a lot of
good risk mitigation.
Exactly, because the Maestro, you're able to actually unplug it and move it in the OR in the surgery.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so he took that from, okay, we're going to make the first 5 and put stuff in a box, all the way to, custom circuit boards and highly integrated. And then one other engineer, and you can't make this stuff up, his name is John Moonlight. And he's a Brit, and we moved him to the Paris office. Okay. And his job is the arms. And so the arms came out of another company called Hapchion, which is a French company. Okay. And then Moon licensed the technology of the arms, and then we had to bring that all in-house. And so it was John Moonlight's job to bring all that in-house, translate all the drawings, release them all, do all the ECO release, and then build a production line in Paris to produce the arms.
Oh, so are the whole system built in Paris?
Or just the arms. So just the arms are in Paris, and then the rest of the system is here in San Mateo.
And then the full thing's built out here.
Yeah,
and you go through
and they ship the arms. They're FRU. They're a field replaceable unit, and the arms come in a crate, and then we put them on the robot.
So cool. Okay, so you only had a team of 3 people for Maestro?
Yes.
And then what was your budget?
I don't
know if you
remember
can disclose or not, but
the exact budget.
Coming out of Series A.
Coming out of Series A, I think they got $4 million in financing.
Total to cover all of operations.
And that wasn't my budget. Exactly.
You guys have done so much with so little. I wish I could share what J&J put into the whole Verb deal with Google, and I can't because it's not disclosed. But the amount of people we had moving on that platform in parallel. Now, arguably, Otava is more complex in certain ways.
Yeah.
Than a cart-based robot and what you're doing, because you don't have the console as well. Like, there's more integration points. Yeah. But I started on Otava in 2016. It's 2026. It's been a decade of people going all out, hundreds of people, billions of dollars, and y'all got it done with like 3 people and $4 million. I mean, there's other people and other partners as well.
Yeah, of course.
It's just remarkable.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And it was deeply satisfying to leave Otava and then release Maestro before Otava was really.
So, hey, it's the Pretentious Engineer further in the future, and I want to share some actions you can take right now, because the reality is some of you will drop off. You got kids that you got to feed. You're coming back home on your commute, and you're going to have to listen to this later. and you might miss it. So I want to share some actions. I also invite you to pause this video and actually do the action if it applies to you, because that gives you accountability. Unless you are driving, then don't do that, because I don't want you to die. Number one, I invite you to connect with Ian on LinkedIn. He's a great follow. He puts out wonderful content. One of my favorite things he does is just takes beautiful pictures of San Francisco and says, "Have a great day." For some reason, that always perks me up periodically when I'm focused and stressed. And then one of those comes across and it makes me happy. And he's got some more content coming soon that I won't disclose that I'm partnering with him on, which should be really great. Number two, I invite you to explore new possibilities with Nerdian. The fastest way to get a hold of Ian is just message him on LinkedIn and set up a call. That said, I will put a link to his website, Nerdian, as well, where you can read some case studies and testimonials from people that have worked with him over the last 20 years or so. And I think you've already decided that he's probably the right person to call for what you're working on. So just follow through. And if anything, just send him a note saying, "Hey, saw this episode on Sunday Sips. Really loved hearing your story. I plan on reaching out in the future when we get to this point in the project, because I think you'd be a great help." Like, just prime him so that he could figure it out, because he gets a lot of leads flow and he has to prioritize which team members he spools up on different projects. So get in the queue. You won't regret it. Number three, if you like this show and would like to highlight or elevate your story, I invite you to join the Sunday Sips Waitlist. This also includes a podcast readiness assessment. So you'll get a few different dimensions, like a radar chart that'll help you understand if you're ready to actually step on a podcast and share your signature story. And going through that, there'll be a quick video where I share a bit about Moonlight Medical, the business I'm building, and how Sunday Sips fits into that. So if nothing else, it'll provide you some context on who I am, what I'm building towards, and I'm probably 1 degree of separation through you to a lead that could be transformative in my business. So that'd be a huge help if you could navigate the Sunday Sips waitlist and nominate a friend from it. If you know someone in your business or prior colleague who you think would be phenomenal on the show, just fill it out on their behalf, and then I'll reach out to you on LinkedIn, and then we can figure out like a 3-way dialogue. And then who knows, maybe they'll be a great fit. And also, if you would like to connect with me personally to learn more about Moonlight Medical, there is a link to my Calendly to set up an appointment at the end of the Sunday Sips waitlist. So if you go through the waitlist, which will take you a couple minutes, there's a link to set up a meeting, and then I can answer any questions you have about Moonlight Medical. My DMs on LinkedIn are saturated, so the fastest way to get my attention is to go through that process. All right, number 4. I would highly encourage you to join a community on Skool. I'm building 2 different communities. One of them I've been building for over a year, called the Big Brain Club, where it's elevating left brains, which are your engineers and global leaders. Right brains are your creatives and community builders, and whole brains are entrepreneurs and parents. And we're all collectively building the life we desire, living where we want, loving what we do, and being paid well for it. I have a free pathway that helps people make progress towards that. I also have some digital course stacks in there. And then eventually I'm launching a mastermind to take a handful of people exceptionally far in an inner circle kind of setting. So we would meet really early in the morning on Saturday once a month to do a mastermind that's targeted towards those couple people and unlocking something in their life so that they could build that dream life, which is super cool. The second one, which is still in beta, is Skool MedTech. My goal here is to actually capture clinical unmet needs across a wide range of clinical specialties and then connect a global ecosystem of innovators, VC, leaders together to figure out like how we get businesses off the ground that solve different problems, and how we take risks together to progress meaningful healing and meaningful innovation. So really excited about that. So check both those out. And then I invite you to check out Ian's second Sips episode. So I went through this whole edit and put markers on interesting spots. And then I'll go back over those markers, play a quick 10-second clip, and I have my sketch pad, and I'll just write up, or I'll pull up videos to show you like how an LVAD actually works, or what Otava looks like, what Maestro looks like. Like, I'll pull up videos. It's more interactive because I wanted to create space for Ian during this dialogue. That's a dialogue where I could geek out on my own, which is also fun. So check that out, or watch other episodes of Sunday Sips. And finally, if you've been here this long and you like it, I'm sure you know a fellow nerd who needs this discussion. So just click the share button and forward it along to someone. There's no guarantee on who the algorithm puts this content in front of. The only guarantee I have is the conversation we're having right now and the friends you have in the real world. So if it's been impactful for you, feel free to repost it, share it along, because I would love to just elevate this story, because it helps us all innovate at a higher level. And with that, let's get back to the show.
And it's not just release, it's doing surgery. It's doing lots of surgery.
Yeah, it's deployed in the field. It's a very real product, which is awesome. Okay, so let me check off. So we have lean budget, less than a year, high leverage team, no custom circuit board, which is fantastic. I think a principle from this that we could just expand on is some engineers struggled with this, like, not designed here methodology.
Yeah.
Especially in a lot of the handheld laparoscopic instruments I've played with, we'd have people like designing springs and dowel pins, and it's like just use what's off the shelf and safe.
Yeah.
So sometimes we can just burn time and cash by over complexifying it. So what's your methodology of like finding what exists and pulling it together versus what's custom? And even in Maestro, like where did you have those trade-offs?
Totally. My dad always said growing up, if you can buy it at Home Depot, buy it at Home Depot. and so I have that kind of attitude. Yeah, anything custom needs to earn its place. And it needs to be there for a reason.
Yeah.
Because especially in the medical device industry, especially with programs like Maestro, where I was personally responsible for receiving every single custom part that was ordered. Yeah. And so these things have overhead, these things have tails. And a big part of it is using as much off-the-shelf components as you can, leveraging suppliers, doing things like there are companies where you can get custom panels, electrical panels with all the connectors already mounted. And then it's just a single part number that you're ordering from that, and then you spec it. And so things like that, where it seems like, oh, it's not that big deal to put a couple screws and put this light on this panel. But if you start to add all that stuff up, it really adds up in aggregate. And if you start to, especially even on the manufacturing side, but even on the R&D side, you start to receive things that are complete. Other people are responsible for their completion, their quality, and you just do that all the way down. Because in a system like Maestro, where you end up with over 1,000, close to 2,000 custom parts, off-the-shelf parts, that really adds up.
Yeah, all the overhead.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're trying to cut that out.
Yeah.
And then do you have any, before we keep moving forward, because the next block's Nerdian, which is fun. Do you have any other overall perspectives on the platform, or just what you're excited about or where it can go in the future? So we're both fellow Moon fans.
Yes, cool. I'm a big fan of Moon because it is such a platform.
Yeah.
It is instrument agnostic, and the way that it's been designed is so expandable and so deployable, and then it's also so easy to interact with. Like a lot of these surgical robotic systems, you have full week-long training sessions. You have full. You have to train your staff. You have to train the OR. You're using the robot when you're in med school, and Maestro is just so intuitive and easy to use, and yet still expandable. Yeah. And so I'm excited to see what people start doing with Maestro that we haven't even envisioned. And that's really what I'm excited because I think we haven't found the killer app yet, and I think we will.
Yeah, you have the hardware deployed in other
time
to
Yes, and it's really quite literally software configurable. I mean, you really can field deploy additional features and skill sets, let's call them, to the robot. So.
Oh, that's so cool. I forgot about this, which is really cool. I think this is just a beautiful mark of how you lead. But if you want to talk a little bit to the history behind that panel.
I love seeing this. So when we were making...
And I'll take a picture of it.
When we were making Maestro... There's always these last parts you have to add when you go. So you go to UL testing and you do your FCC testing. You always have to add copper tape or add a plate here and this and that. And so when we were going through pulling part numbers, I saved special part numbers along the way as for future.
You just reserved it?
Yes. And so this is part number 500. Okay. And I reserved that well before we finished, well above it. And we got to the final, the first, I forget, I think it was prototype 3 that we were taking to UL FCC EMC testing. And we added the tape, and there was one part around the AC power inlet that we had copper tape on, and we needed to make it that real and make it a real plate. And so this part number, 1003. Sorry, not 500. I got the part number. Yeah. And
so beautiful.
These two holes are actually, it taps into holes that were there for other reasons.
Yeah.
And this plate was the last part we designed, and it goes right there for that EMC. And what I did is it's gold plated, and then we had folks get everybody's signature in the company. So everybody's signature in the company at the time is engraved along with the Moon Surgical logo. And it was the final part that we put in the system. And then I actually, in the R&D budget, bought some extra ones, and we gave one to each person at the holiday party.
So was this the whole squad at Moon, or this was just your
at that time?
group?
Yeah,
so this was everybody.
Yeah.
So I have, if I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 by 5. So you're looking at like 20 people, 40 people.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't I do math? 40-ish people
Yeah.
brought Moon to light.
Yeah.
It's so remarkable. Like just
Thank
what you
you.
can create with such a small group of people
Yes.
that are focused.
And we had a good time doing it. That's
Yeah.
what I think is so amazing.
And you took their signatures from their documents of like actually joining the company.
Yes, their employment
You
documents.
you
Yes,
surprised-
exactly.
you-
It's a
you
true
stole
surprise.
You stole it from their employment contract.
Yes.
It's so funny. Who did you? It's so funny. I'm used to J&J with so many constraints where I can't imagine somebody finding my signature from a document and pulling it.
Yes.
So like, who did you talk to like make that happen?
I
you went
asked,
over to HR and stole them all or something.
Exactly. I asked
So
the leadership, and then they were on board with the whole
Yeah.
idea, and then we had
So
HR pull
Anne
that.
signed off on it.
Exactly. Yeah, and then
That's
HR
so cool.
gave me all these images, and then I put them in and did the GX.
I gotta throw this into the thumbnail. This is just it is so beautiful. And then I guess some of these folks are still with Moon. Some have moved on.
Yeah.
If you were to get a robotic platform off the ground from scratch in a different context, like if you had to take two with you,
Yeah.
you already talked about Carlos, obviously, but
Yeah.
like, who would you pull from these names and bring into something cool?
The three that come to mind are Carlos, Rohan, and Hassan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Oh, it's so neat. I love this so much.
Thank you.
It's really clean. So it's gold-plated
Yeah.
aluminum, I'm guessing?
Yeah, gold-plated aluminum, and it's conductively gold-plated, so it's actually iodine coating for the electrical conductivity feature. And
Did these actually get into Moon
oh yeah,
products?
they're a release part. Yeah, and this one is actually from inventory.
So
yeah.
like if you go onto the initial systems that like commercial
Yeah,
units
you
also
open it
have
up,
this?
you can see it. You take the back panel off, that's right there.
Inside?
Right above the power inlet module. Yeah.
So on any Moon in the field, this is still
Yeah.
out there with the names
Yes.
engraved on
Yeah.
it.
And that's
It's
the
like-
beautiful
it's the
thing about
ultimate
being a
Easter
design
egg.
engineer like me is you get to design Easter eggs into things.
That's the
Almost
ultimate
everything I've
Easter
ever
egg.
built has stuff like that in it.
Yeah. And it's such a large piece of capital, you don't need to worry about the cost savings.
Yeah, and why would
Cool.
they pay money to change it?
That is so beautiful.
And I took inspiration because a lot of the early Apple and Atari products, they would have people sign the inside of the thing.
It's so cool. It's all the lore. Oh my gosh, it's wonderful. So, kind of the next block I want to work for. Did I miss any? Is there any medical tech things that you wanted to geek out on before we go into your business that I forgot about? I know
No.
there's also this we brought out for spinal vision.
Maybe dialysis?
Yeah, if you, I just don't want to miss anything cool.
Yeah.
And then we'll go into like entrepreneurship and running a business and what Nerdian does for folks.
Yeah,
in
for
these
sure.
spaces. But
Yeah.
if there's any other context you wanted to chat through.
Yeah. So my first introduction into, so a lot of the LVADs are highly mission critical, but also very simple. One moving part, motor stator, one motor controller.
Yeah.
And my first introduction to really complex medical devices was Outset Medical's Tableau system. At the time, it was not called Outset Medical, and it wasn't called Tableau. It was called Home Dialysis Plus. But the FDA did not want to hear the words home and dialysis
Was that
in
one
the
of the
same.
first home dialysis systems?
There was one before, but it had some issues, and so the FDA was not keen on home dialysis. They changed their name
Yeah.
and got it through, and now they're doing home dialysis with it, of course, once the
Really?
FDA comes back around.
Okay.
But you had to show that it's safe and effective, because a lot of the early systems had some pretty bad adverse events and danger. And with hemodialysis, if you just have one needle come out, you'll bleed to death in 2 minutes. And so it's really challenging.
So they were
thing
doing
to
it through
do.
an IV.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, because my grandfather's on peritoneal
PD.
dialysis.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've done a lot of stuff with that. Yeah.
Really? Okay,
Yes.
yeah. So he's on Fresenius.
PD is great. Yes, I know the Fresenius, and that came out of DECA. That's a Dean Kamen thing. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Excellent.
That.
I didn't know they used to do it intravenously at
Oh
home.
no. Yeah. Exactly. And that's hemodialysis and peritoneal. Exactly. And so, in hemodialysis, I was involved heavily because of the blood pumping nature of it. And so you have blood pumps and blood pumps and filters and an extracorporeal blood set. And the challenge, again, going back to what we were talking about earlier, when we're designing that system, written into law is the cost of a dialysis system because of Medicare and Medicaid and the reimbursement structure and
So
everything.
it's all rated by Medicaid.
Yes, and it's all paid for by them, because if you're in renal failure for longer than a certain period of time, you automatically go into that. And so each disposable sterile tubing set, less than $6 shipped. And it has 40 custom parts, 35 feet of tubing, sterilized in a Tyvek pouch, and it has custom.
Was that the
pressure
pouch you gave me,
membranes.
or was that for something
That
different?
a little different. It's like that
That's
with
okay.
a few more things.
Yeah.
And so on that system, years before we even designed the capital equipment, we had to design that blood tubing set and get that going. And so I had designed, architected the way it interfaces, the way the tubing set is, how it's done, identified the CM in Thailand, built a relationship with them, and I had a standing call every Thursday evening at 11 p.m. for 2.5
Sounds about
years.
right. Yeah.
And a year and a half of that was before we even had a piece of capital to go with it.
Yeah.
Because in that world, there are 2 or 3 suppliers in the world that can hit those cost targets with that complexity of things, sterile, packed, and you have to align with
That's
that early
so
on.
aggressive.
And
6 bucks.
yes.
So that, I mean, that's why Baxter can play in those spaces
Yes.
when they had Fresenius before they just
Exactly.
offloaded that. Okay.
And that's why it's so difficult to get into
I
that
didn't know those
space.
constraints.
Yeah. And that doesn't even include the dialysate. There's a lot that goes with that. And so that's the beautiful thing about Outset is it was architected correctly around the regulatory constraints and then also what they actually wanted to do. And they really delivered a lot of value for patients. People are really happy about
And
that.
is that system out as
It's
well?
system out there and it's doing
Did it get
a lot
acquired, or is it its own?
and it's its own thing, yeah.
Oh, really?
It's
Okay.
its own large company. They have a lot of systems out there. They're doing really well, and there's a lot of companies that are using it as their flagship for home dialysis. And the other really cool thing about it is normally dialysis machines, you have to have RO water treatment plant to take the city water and then make it injectable grade. And that's a facility the size of this room in a hospital, costs millions of dollars to put up. The Outset, you just plug it into tap, and it makes the sterile water 1 ounce at a time on demand as it needs it.
Yeah.
So the beautiful thing is that, again, like we talk about ASCs all the time in surgical robotics,
Mm-hmm.
it opens up a whole bunch of other care pathways where a smaller hospital that wants to be able to do dialysis, hemodiafiltration, things like that, is able to do it even though they don't have an RO water plant because they just wheel Outset in and plug it in and do dialysis.
So you worked on that whole piece of capital.
Yeah.
And
Architected. I led a 12-person team that architected what we called the upper module, which was the dialysis module, and the lower module was the RO water filtration module. And then since they've been combined to one module, so it's all one thing.
Was that under Nerdian, or were you hired? on
That was
team?
at Evergreen Research. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Exactly.
So when you're consulting.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And then, actually, before we get into Nerdian, can you talk me through jewelry? And
Yes,
kind of that
yes.
history with your
Yeah.
father and like because there's an interesting tinkerer craftsmanship nature to you.
Yeah.
And a delight that comes from that creation and working with your hands that's
Yeah.
just so evident on both. Like, this feels like the same artistry as jewelry, but
Yes.
inside someone's body.
Yes.
So, like, what are the challenges with making custom jewelry? How did you upskill in those spaces with your father?
Yeah.
And how do you bring that into the way you create
100%.
medical tech today?
A lot of times we have the same challenge in what we do as making jewelry because my dad specialized in doing highly custom, essentially sculpture for people. And so people would come in and say, hey, I want to melt down my grandfather's ring and I want to remake it into this and I want you to use my grandmother's diamond and put it in. And they would maybe have a drawing or maybe abstractly describe it to my dad. And my dad would sit down with a piece of wax and hand carve that piece of wax into a beautiful piece of jewelry and then show it to the customer. And then they say, yes, no, change it this way. And they have that iterative dialogue back and forth. And so it's almost like my dad is their muse in creating this object. And it's not, the beauty of the object is not in the eye of my father. It's in the eye of the client or the customer. And it's my father's hand doing that work. And so I grew up in that environment where he'd constantly be getting feedback and then trying to take that, internalize it, distill it, make it his own, bring it back, and have that conversation. And the beautiful piece about that is he'd make it out of wax. And you have this conversation over this physical object. And now it's changed where you do it in the computer and you 3D print it and things like that. But in my world, it's exactly what we do, where you describe something to me as the client that you want or the customer, and then I just keep bringing you things until it's what you want. And if I show you things earlier, that helps me. But we have to have a collaborative, creative relationship about that, and we're both in it together. And that's the relationship that was a part of my dad's business for the 35, 40 years that my parents ran the business. And my favorite part about that is you see the entire arc, just like we've already seen in medical device industry, where you see things from the very beginning, and then you see people come in and my dad made their wedding ring and they're bringing their kid in to have my dad make. And it's the same thing with my family and my friends, and it's just like becomes a generational thing. And so for me, somehow sharing that craftsmanship and that creation is what it's always been about for me. And it's always been about for my father, because he doesn't wear jewelry. It's common, like people always ask him, like he literally wears no jewelry. And so for him, his entire craft is surrounded about like making other people happy. And so it's the same thing with medical devices, right? Like a lot of the stuff that we build, I don't actually get to show people. I don't actually get to interact with personally.
And you're not using it.
I'm not using it.
Yet,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Best case scenario, I'm not using it. Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, we get to share this creative process. And then over time, it gets to come full circle and people start to appreciate the work that you did. And it's really wonderful.
And you still do jewelry sometimes, right?
Yeah,
And it's kind of, is it cathartic for you?
It's very
still?
cathartic for me. And I speak and think in jewelry terms a lot with my dad, because there's a lot of jewelry specific terms for things, and the way that you form things. It's a lot like a blacksmith is different than a machinist.
Yeah.
And so it really, they call it goldsmithing. And that's the way that you're able to work gold because of its ductility gives you different manufacturing options. And playing in that world is so interesting to me. And what I love most about kind of jewelry and watchmaking and those things is the reverence for it. Like a lot of engineering, it's hidden underneath the hood or it's hidden in the motor. But in that world, the beauty is the purpose, and the purpose is to share it. And so,
Well, and even with your studio and just like the way that in the gaps between doing normal work for clients, you're still crafting and creating and running prints. I still love your threadboard. I want it personally. Because for folks who aren't here, like he has a 3D printer that has an infinite x-axis. Is that how you describe it? Infinite Z. So it could just keep going and printing, and he'll run a print from the window. You'll probably move a couple things and just bring it out.
Yeah.
So you have these huge threadboards that you could do. Every box has a place.
Yep. And it's all interchangeable and compatible with itself.
Oh my God, it's beautiful. So cool. Okay, so why Nerdian? So how did this start? Because one of the limiting conversations I've had with a couple of my clients, more from a coaching perspective, they're in career boundaries, they've had a long run somewhere, they've upskilled, and they're thinking about moving into consulting or starting something that fractionally uses a pocket of their skills. And sometimes they'll feel like if they start a business, it invalidates their value going back into traditional industry. So they'll often just wait and apply instead of trying to do and find clients and serve. Mm-hmm. And what I love about your arc is you started Nerdian almost over a decade ago, but you've gone into high caliber like high-end roles at Verb, Oris, Moon Surgical, and you have something that can't be disclosed and progressing down the road. I'll probably poke on it if I can later. Like you've moved in and out. So how have you continued to build and operationalize a business and still move into industry? And then I guess why Nerdian, as well as like the name and what you do?
Yes. You have to know who you're serving.
Yes.
And
so good.
I have everything you just described are just means to an end for me to design and build medical devices. Yep. So I just do whatever I need to do in order to keep designing and building and bringing to market medical devices. And the greater world, the market dynamics, the employment dynamics, all those things might change. But I've worked really hard to have the skill set that I have. A lot of people have really invested in me in ways that I didn't deserve. And I view
it's humbling, right? How much these
humbling.
companies put
I know
into,
people have more faith in you than
when I look at what J&J's put into me, I'm like, oh my God.
I know, and you have to do something with it. And so I truly view that it's a travesty, not just for me, but for the people that have invested in me and society as a whole. That people like me, people like us, need to be doing this. Yeah. And I just work for ways to keep doing that.
Yeah. So you almost approach it as stewardship of your craft.
Yes.
Oh my gosh,
exactly.
That's awesome.
And the one thing that upsets me in these relationships is lack of respect for the craft. Yeah. And that's the one thing that I feel like I carry forward is just reverence and respect for the craft of all the machining, blacksmithing, engineering. And that's the one thing I don't have tolerance for.
Well, like reverence for the craft, I mean, as we continue to talk about personal branding things, it is from all the time I've spent with you, that rings true. That is very.
I'm so happy to hear that.
It's an authentic. I love when I find these words with people because it takes so long to discover it. But yeah, it is a true reverence for the craft, and it goes from I'll use goldsmithing if that's the right term. Into heart pumps, and into these complex robotic surgical systems and digital ecosystems, and building and scaling a team to be able to provide service to different stealth mode startups on projects you can't even talk about, which is fun. But it all goes back to that reverence, because you work with such a high caliber capability, but a humility and that service and that authenticity. And I was going to write this in the intro and I didn't, but I'll just speak candidly because I was like, I can't say that, but I can say whatever I want. It's a podcast. It's very rare to find someone in our industry at your level who's not an asshole to work with. At least that was my experience at times working with high level PhDs in robotics controls and mechatronics, where they've had to reach the highest levels in academia and then jump into industry. And some of them are really awful to work with because they're used to high, intense situations and really limited budgets and all the risks, and they're wearing all the personal strain. You don't carry that energy with you. You carry this humble reverence to the craft, and that's why you have this halo effect of people wanting to work with you. But you still do the same caliber of work, if not better. So yeah, I genuinely mean that, because I won't name people that I've crossed paths with, but you in many ways are the antethesis of it.
I appreciate
Which is
that.
fantastic.
And in my view, that's how you get there, is the humbleness. Because I really think we're all born with natural talents, but it's really what you do with that. And I learned early on that I may not have the pedigree or the education that others may have, but I can be the hardest working, most humble person in the room by choice every day. And I learned that early on. It served me well, and so I just...
Well, it comes from your grandfather and the work that he's done, and how that instilled with your family running a jewelry business together. And now you're bringing that craft into medical devices, which is wild. Yeah. Okay, so where did you come up with the name for Nerdian? I mean, it's a natural fit, but what spark led you to that's my LLC? Assuming that's what your LLC matches the external business name. Okay.
Yes.
Because mine doesn't now. I have to fix it.
I grew up in the world where being a nerd wasn't cool. And it's changed.
Yeah.
And so when I started that and I chose that name, the people like you in my ecosystem got it immediately, loved it. And I had somewhere along the way, I was interviewing for a job, and it was at a very famous company we all know, not in the medical device industry, very corporate, and they had bought a startup here in the Bay Area, and they were bringing in corporate folks to take it over, and so they were interviewing for me with to take that over, and he was talking out loud, and he was reading my resume, and he goes, Nerdian, and blah blah blah, and he goes that's nerd. That's disparaging. Why would you do? And then you saw the wheel turn, and then he goes, "Oh, you think it's good to be a nerd?" Yeah. And then right in the interview, and I didn't take that job, but to me, that's the litmus test, right?
That's beautiful.
And literally, this person was a technical leader in a technical company, R&D focused, disparaging being a nerd. Yeah. And to me, I built this whole company around celebrating being a nerd, I guess.
Well, and I found with a lot of my content creation and personal branding, the message is almost about you want to push away a certain group of people in order to attract the small sliver that really get it.
Yes.
And those are the clients you want to work with anyway. But a lot of people are so afraid of pushing that group away that they just serve this mushy middle, and they get nowhere.
But a lot of times, pushing them away is what you need to do in order to have that headspace, to have that freedom. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So it's beautiful that you embraced and flipped something.
Well, it's so crazy too, because in the intervening years, popular culture has flipped on me too, and so now it's wonderful. I don't have to explain it. So, yeah, it's great to be a nerd now. Yeah.
You were a nerd before it was cool. That's so funny.
Exactly.
That's awesome. So we did our battery change, which is fun. Okay, so Nerdian, reverence for the craft. I'm catching myself back up. So I'd like to understand how you progressed from solopreneurship, of you just like getting good work for yourself, into the language I'm using is building a design house collective, where you have people on the bench that you tap on the shoulder when something comes your way that makes sense, as well as more steady partners that you work with. One of the things I was most impressed with when you built the podcast studio was that you had someone else do portions of the design, which we'll get into. You had an external company actually machine portions of it, which I just wasn't expecting you to go to that level and to treat it like a real robotics build, which is fantastic. So how did you take that jump? How long did it take? Maybe what barriers did you navigate going from getting work for yourself towards creating an ecosystem where lots of people can become mini entrepreneurs with their craft?
Initially, a lot of it is learning how businesses work, how to found things, how financing works, how to open a business bank account. And so that took me several years initially, and I did that kind of on the side, as kind of a side business. And that part is, they don't teach you anywhere really about just how the society works, how to get insurance, how this thing ties with that. And so that took a while. And then once I got my own infrastructure, to where it probably took me 4 or 5 years to get my own infrastructure to where I felt like I was running a reasonable business. And then at that time, I had really learned a lot from my time at Oris and J&J, where onboarding 80 people, if I taught each one of those people, I wouldn't have enough time in the day. And so we really had to build robust processes. We talked about this earlier, and we did it kind of on just like wiki format, where I would make an onboarding document for Carlos, my first hire, and then Carlos's job, his first job is to make that better as he onboarded. And then that goes down the line. And so over time, the onboarding documentation is really wonderful, and I didn't have to do it. And it's really self repairing and rebuilding in a way that doesn't even need me to use that to check that list off or whatever in every meeting. These things are just happening because they know it serves them and it serves the next person. And so I applied those same methodologies to my own business. And so everything that I did, again, I don't expect anybody to do any workflow that I can't. And of course, in a solopreneur business, you're doing every workflow. But I started really documenting each one of these processes, each one of these things. And at the time, I had no idea that AI was going to show up and be the perfect receptacle for those processes. But at the time, I was just building business processes around what I do. And then I started sharing those with people. So a lot of the people that work for me, with me, over time wanted to learn all those things. And so as a way on into that world, I would teach them what I know as far as business goes. It's almost like business for engineers, right? And then as they build their own little consultancy or their dream, they need work, they have a specialty, and that network just expands over time. And I have heard multiple times from people that they say, you're someone who has a lot of goodwill in this business. And for me, that's what I view that I bank in. And that's what I bring to bear when we do things like the Robotic Podcast Studio, or Robotic Podcast Box, excuse me. I bring that goodwill to bear, and I use these projects to continue that goodwill. And I think by doing that, it serves us all, both the people making these things and the people who end up using the products we design.
Yeah, because you've had some clients for multiple years.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, many.
What's the longest working relationship you've had?
Over a decade, yeah.
Oh my God, that's awesome. I mean, for me, I'm only 2 years into all-in entrepreneurship, and I've only gotten it to start to work financially maybe the last 6 months legitimately. And it's fun for me to imagine what a decade out looks like as I build and scale a team, and as I build those partnerships and provide value and goodwill into the industry.
They are partnerships.
That's exactly. Like business starts to get really fun. And the virtuous loops that kind of happen.
Yes, and the kind of people you meet through doing that are just so valuable to your personal progression and your personal development. And that's what I've really found is I've used this as a way to become the kind of person I wanted to be.
Do you remember the very first client? Like the first time you got paid for the works of your hand, independent of a job?
I do.
What was that like?
It was amazing.
I don't know what you can or can't share from it. But.
It was amazing to me because they called me out of the blue.
Mm-hmm.
And because they had worked with me at a previous job. And at that job, I was kind of an in-house designer, and they brought in this external design firm to do something that I was offended by it. And then I left, and then they called me to do the work. And so there's so many of those things that have happened to me where there's initially a thing that it's like, this seems weird. And then it ends up being like, oh, these are the people I'm supposed to be with, not these people, you know? And so that was really wonderful for me because I just got a call out of the blue from somebody who in the past would have been a competitor, but at that time ended up being a partner. So.
That's so awesome. So how long did it take before you had kind of the first partner within Nerdian? Like going from people tapping you on the shoulder and then you getting tapped enough to realize, oh, I have leads flow here. Like I could probably give pieces of this off to folks. This is a bigger job.
Yeah, for me, the big stress was there's a difference between being a consultant and running a business.
Yes.
And the difference is marketing funnel inbound. Mm-hmm. And it took me 5 or 6 years to build that to the point where I had enough inbound to keep myself busy.
Yeah.
And to me, within my own business, and even I never want to fire anybody.
Yeah.
And so I maybe could have hired people before I did, but I was very cautious to make sure that I'm not going to give somebody false hope and then send them out because I didn't run a business properly. And so
That's such beautiful discretion. Well, it's
hard.
honorable. A lot of people, they'll scale up too quick and then they have to fire half their team.
Well, and that ruins all the goodwill that I have, and that's my entire...
You're better off hiring folks fractionally for jobs and gigs.
And that's exactly, and that's what I've focused is I've focused on kind of teaching people how to do what I do on the side and then building that up over time. And then they have their own legs that they can stand on. Yeah. And then 5 or 6 years in, it just got to the point where I just had so much that I could do. And then at that point, it's a really difficult thing where I have, I owe something to my client that I've known for many, many years, and I don't want to mess up that relationship. And so then I need to make sure that I have partners that really, really do a good job.
Yeah.
And I do, luckily, because
you have the reputation to navigate with your business, and you have to get some kind of arbitrage or margins off of the people you're bringing into different gigs. So
and it's so helpful if you help build all that and architect it together so it can serve that need.
So was there kind of a turning point when you shifted into having that ecosystem of people working with you? Was there like a moment, like a gig or a job where you're like, I can cleave this off, or did you start to like roll folks on little by little? And it just scaled?
After I left Moon, I opened this design lab.
Yeah,
and that was
2 years ago.
That was little over 2 years ago, and that was really that watershed moment.
Yeah.
Where I had enough critical mass here to do what I needed to do, but then I also had a place that I could bring clients, I could show off final products, I could film things like this, and then it got just the nature of the network economy here. It just got to where the finding the leads and the funnel and all that took less time, and so you're able to do more engineering, and then at that time you have more work to do and you can peel it off. And for me, I showed you earlier, my favorite part about what we do is the handoffs are super smooth and very efficient. And that's my favorite part is I can design 70% of something and then get to an impasse and then just, I need help, and then leave. And then it's just done in the morning.
Yeah.
And building those infrastructures and that setup where everybody has the same context, they can know the same information, they're looking for stuff in the same thing. It takes time, but once you have that working, it's just like a well-oiled machine, and you're just making stuff.
It gets fun.
Yeah, it gets real fun because you're making stuff all day, and you're not dealing with the business running and all that rigmarole of everything.
Yeah. And we'll probably, like at this point in the pod, I'll probably cut to us giving a tour of the podcast studio and that project. So we'll assume that they watch that for a second, which is so awesome.
So hey friends, I'm here with Ian McEachern, and we are going to demo the RPB, the Robotic Podcast Box. It fits in a Pelican case, and it's got power on the backside. This is a mobile podcast studio where the power is. But Ian built all of this in under 3 weeks, taking us from white paper to MVP for the Mach 1. Then over time it'll get better. Let's see. Open it up. And then I don't know if you want to talk through the design again.
Yeah, so it expands. So you open the lid and it lets you expand both sides. There's cameras on both sides here, and they expand out once we hit the switch. And then there's also a Z camera that comes up for a 360, and then he also has power distribution and everything that goes with that, as well as some branding.
Yeah. So we just flip the rocket launcher and then go out. And then eventually this switch will control a Z axis, and then he made custom mounts so that the GoPros would be providing like a view of one speaker, a view of another speaker, and then I have a 360 camera that would mount here that will be a little bit higher so it can get a wider shot of both of us talking together. And this could sit on a table opposite of the table that I'm having an episode with anybody. So Sunday Sips is the first MedTech podcast with a RPB, Robotic Podcast Box. And thank you so much, Ian, for all the hard work.
It's been a pleasure.
Oh yeah, we worked together on this all yesterday, tweaking it, so it's a lot of fun to collaborate. And I don't know if you want to talk any more about kind of your creative process with how you work with clients to do mechatronics kind of work.
Yeah.
End to end.
Yeah, it's been wonderful to bring you into the whole process of doing this, and so you could have the whole full client experience. We're very collaborative, and so we really like to prototype and keep prototype some more. And so as we've been designing and building this thing, we've 3D printed dozens of replacement parts as we tweak everything, get everything just right, because it really is a whole system that integrates with his camera equipment, everything else that he needs, and so it takes time to kind of get the nuance of that, and you need to allow for that time.
Yeah. I don't know, I mean, because we have everybody on a stick. If you want to give them a mini tour of how you make stuff in your lab,
sure,
that'd be cool.
Yeah, this is our lab, and so over here we have a bunch of 3D printers all stacked up, and computing station where we do a lot of work, 3D printing, slicing, CAD design, and then we have assembly benches over here, of course, that are always covered with stuff, and then just a little office space over here. And then over here we have some CNC machines, some small desktop CNC machines that we do some tooling and other small metal working parts with, SLA printing, and then over here is our injection molding area where we have a 20-ton injection molding machine and some smaller other vertical injection molding machines, as well as ultrasonic welding capability. And then back there we also have large format 3D printing, all in one small space.
And you have the view of San Francisco.
And the view of San
back,
Francisco.
Which is crazy. And this is the very first injection molding machine.
Yes,
right?
This is the first injection molding machine that we had. And I've actually taken this to quite a few trade shows and done live molding on the floor, and give people a part that they can mold on the floor and take home with them. And that's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. And then that was the first 3-axis CNC
Yeah,
you had?
yeah. This is the first
jewelry?
3 and 4-axis CNC machine that I've had. I've had this for over 20 years. And I started doing a lot of small jewelry wax and other milling with my dad through his jewelry business. And that kind of helped me love CNC machining, and it's been with me this whole time.
Awesome. Well, Ian, thank you so much. Appreciate it, and we'll get back to the podcast. But
Thank you.
It's awesome.
And then how was that handoff? Like, how did you navigate that with this project specifically?
Yes.
For the
Perfect
for
example.
the RPB Mach 1.
Yes.
Find the acronym itself.
For this project, you gave me a really wonderful requirements list. And then we had a really
Thank you.
And
the
that's
systems engineer in me. I was like, I have to constrain pieces of it.
That's the key to success.
Yeah.
You also had a really good conversation, a couple of conversations with me about what you wanted it to be. We had some recorded conversations that I mined through, and I just absorbed that for about a week, and then started to pick parts that I think would meet the need. And then the way I do it is I have drop dead dates. So I knew that to get this panel done and the certain custom components, I had to order them on a certain date to get them in by the time you came. And so I just forced myself to design as much as I could by that date, and I ordered it. And when I ordered it, I had 2 holes missing, and I had a little slot that I had to file in when I got it here. That's okay, because I got the order in, and I found out those things after. Mm-hmm. And then after we got that on order, then I designed all the 3D printed parts, 3D printed the first one of those, got those all ready, ordered all the BOM, all the switches, all the components. And then, so by the time the panel came in, I had everything, I test fit it, figure out all the things that don't work, and then just keep iterating. Yeah. And so rather than waiting till I have a perfect design and reviewing it with you and doing that, I design just as much as I need to do to order the parts on the date. And then I count on the in process, the craftsmanship, the iterative work to take it over the finish line. And then we review it kind of after that iterative work. And that allows me to be at my best and my team to be at my best. And it also allows us to capture what you want, not what you asked for.
Yes, this is different than what I asked for, but it's better. Which is fantastic.
Thank you. That's what I like to do.
And for me, what was most exciting as a client is seeing what aspects of the design you prioritize and what you deprioritize. And naturally, as a client, I was like, but I want all the things.
Yeah.
But this was exactly what we needed for an MVP to shoot this episode. And I could roll out with this and take it to Sages or take it to a company and sit down with a CEO and film a podcast on the go. And then because you have all the files, like, you could continue to iterate. I can give you feedback. You could move outlet locations. You can cut a new panel. Like this is a process that can evolve over time if you treat it like a robotic startup.
Yes.
And the claim you made with me when we first chatted, even before I pitched this concept, was that you could get a robot out sometimes on the order of weeks as opposed to months or a decade if you're J&J.
Yeah.
It's really quite remarkable. Just how you partnered with Alan, how you partnered with external machine shops, like the speed and the quality. It's hard to get both of those optimized.
Yes.
And it's incredible.
Yes, you gotta thread that needle, right?
Yeah.
And my favorite part about this is, and again, you mentioned Alan, a great partner of mine, and I just said, Alan, I need, and I told him what this was. I told him what motors I was using. I told him what the limit switches were, and then he shipped me electronics, software, code, all in a box, and I just plug it in. And we turned it on, and it worked the first time.
I know.
And I always say you live in and you die by the interfaces. And that's my favorite thing is in making those interfaces so smooth that you're almost like passing each other's. It's like ships in the night, dropping stuff off, and then it just works. Yeah. And that to me is that's what we're doing.
Yeah, there's a video of me being like, oh my God, it's so cool. I'll have to pull up that soundbite as well because it was the first switch you flipped. It all just moved the way it was.
And my favorite part about that too is I was over there working on something else and you're just always just flipping it. Oh, just over and over.
Yeah. The rocket launch switches, I don't know the technical term for those.
Yeah.
You know, it's like submarine torpedoes. Like it just feels right. And when they light up, that's what I want next is light up switches. But it is so fantastic.
I appreciate that.
And you leverage AI in your statement of works as well.
Yeah.
So like, how did you build that? Because that was really cool.
Yeah.
Just your turnaround on that is way faster than anything I do for clients.
Totally.
Because I'm not using AI there.
Yeah, and a huge part of that is all the agreements, consulting agreements, legal stuff, NDAs, and then also statements of work and working through all that. And in a traditional, like evergreen research, a traditional product design firm, that process can take weeks, months. Spend a lot of my time dealing with all that.
It's time before you get to cut an invoice.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And you're really making these difficult decisions where, should I charge an extra 5% and that makes it a little bit better, or are they going to not say yes because of that? And it's a really difficult needle to thread. And so we, over the course of 12 years now, I have a lot of statements of work and a lot of project kind of final project summaries and things, and so I fed that into an LLM, and it's really amazing and really powerful because of all that background data and all that information. It's not only able to output SOWs that are helpful and meaningful, but they're in my style, and they're really they use the same vernacular that I use, and some things like that. Like again, when I started collecting all this data and organizing my business in this way, you never thought that you'd have this magical thing to feed these things to. But it's really nice that we have all this data to feed it now.
Oh, it's so nice. It's clean for me to kind of work through all the sections.
Yeah.
And it was very well branded, and it was very clear. Like I knew what you were working on, what was in and out of scope. And this is from one call. I think we sorted this all out on one call.
Yeah.
And I recorded 1 or 2 videos to just give you a bit of requirements and constraints.
Yeah.
And then you ran everything through your LLM, and then you and Alan got to work. And there's a podcast, robotic podcast in a box in under 3 weeks.
Exactly.
Which is so cool.
Basically, I give the LLM everything you gave me, and then I do a little write-up of like, this is what I think I should make, and then.
It's fantastic. It's so cool. So you, let's talk about the space. So you've had brick and mortar for 2 years here. You had something in Sacramento before the move out here. And we're surrounded by $500,000 worth of creative capabilities. So if you wanted to geek out, I know we did a mini tour in the video they'll see, but if there's anything that's specifically like special or meaningful to you here that you've acquired that you used to create, if you wanted to talk about that would be cool as well.
My favorite example of that is injection molding.
Yeah.
Because injection molding machines really are robots. And they're some of the first factory automation robots that we use. And they're used everywhere, all the time, 24/7. And so with the injection molding that we're doing here, we're actually able to, not only are we taking an injection molding machine and injection molding, we're taking that injection molding machine, designing custom tooling that mounts custom molds, and then those custom molds, we're 3D printing them and then innovating with the material suppliers, 3D printer suppliers, working with those folks, really as an innovation lab to say, okay, how can we use the latest in design and 3D printing technology plus traditional manufacturing methods, and how do we mash these things together so we can do things like create an injection mold tool in a day, or create some overmolds in a day, or all of the above.
Slow at Johnson & Johnson. This is so fast.
Well, and what I love about all these things is in a lot of worlds, like if you were at an injection molding company and you needed to change some robotic thing on your injection molding machine, that's a whole other company that you have to call.
Yep.
And in this company, that's what we do. And so we're able to literally design, refine, and build our own equipment to manufacture the processes. And that's really, I think, that's when you have a real innovation lab, when you're not only able to innovate like on the product, on the work product, but you're able to innovate on the tools by which and processes by which you create that.
Yeah. And for your capabilities and kind of collaboration with other folks, do you have a sweet spot of the new product development pipeline from like clinical unmet need into early front end discovery, prototyping work, and then into detailed design? Like, where do you play the best with your capabilities and working with clients?
Really, we added the most value early on when it's really fuzzy and you just need people to sit in that discomfort and be comfortable with it.
Yeah.
And understand that that's the role. And it's that early stage where maybe the product people are asking the engineers to tell them what's possible.
Yeah.
And the engineers are saying, anything's possible, just tell me what you want to make. And you're having those kind of conversations. And I'm really able to walk across that wall and really help folks understand each other through that whole process, and help to articulate to the leaders, the marketing folks, the product folks, what is possible, what's reasonable in the engineering space, and then also articulate to the engineers how the clinical business works and how the rest of these businesses work, and kind of figure out how to, I always call it horse trading, how to figure out how to do the horse trading to get everybody to align.
So you're almost like a full fractional MedTech stealth startup R&D org. You could just jump
Yes.
into any company and
Yes.
help triangulate that unmet need and get the tech pushed forward
Yep.
and figure out what's critical path
Yep.
and do it up to a certain point until they would then work with full manufacturers for larger engineering builds.
Yeah, and a lot of times we help architect that plan, and
Yeah.
we help build that out, and we say, these are the staff you need, these are the expertise, these are the CMs you need to, and the suppliers you need, and we're happy to do that as a service. And then also a lot of times people take that plan and go build their own company in Oregon, and we just help every once in a while, and so we're happy to do it.
Yeah, so you could do the end-to-end, like full scope of work, or you could cleave off pieces of it.
Yeah,
Oh, it's beautiful.
exactly.
Okay, so you got your injection molding. You said you were like one of the only injection molding companies in
In
the
San
Bay?
Francisco, we're the only one in San Francisco.
Really?
Yeah.
Within
I always
city
say
limits?
we're the only and largest injection molding company in San Francisco.
And that's your other company, right? It's Golden
Yeah,
Gate
Golden Gate
Molders.
Molders.
Okay, so
Yeah,
you have
exactly.
Nerdian's kind of all the MedTech work comes through that.
Yeah.
And then Golden Gate is just for molding
for
specifically.
quick turn injection molding and that really came out of a need that we had at Nerdian, where we're constantly needing that and not really getting what we needed from the
Yeah.
current suppliers in the market, and knowing there were several injection molders in this area. Several of them have actually shut down recently, so there's a real
Oh, really?
hole in the market.
Yeah.
And the ecosystem, the innovation ecosystem here really needs it. So.
Yeah, beautiful. And then anything else special that you like about your equipment? Printing, milling. You have whatever that thing was called, your downdraft
Downdraft
table.
table, sure.
That was awesome.
One of my favorite things we do all the time is innovate on 3D printing. So we've been really innovating on printing new materials. And so this is actually a basketball printed out of polypropylene, FDM printed in polypropylene. And anybody that's played around with this knows that FDM is polypropylene is very difficult to print. And this is something we actually get a lot of value add out of, and a lot of people come to us to do is Because in the medical device world, you want to figure out how to make the prototypes, and then you go do your testing, and there's always that gap where maybe you don't have the same material. And so we really play in that world where we figure out how to either 3D print with materials that you normally can't, or we figure out how to injection mold quicker, faster, cheaper, so that it's more like 3D printing.
And again, you told me, but for viewers, what's so special about polypropylene? I'm not a material scientist, but why is it so hard with 3D printing specifically?
It doesn't stick to anything other than itself. So it's really hard to get it to stick to a build plate. And then it's also, it's almost like a wax. So it's very gummy and sticky when it prints. So you have to print it really slow, very specific temperature control. And then the bed adhesion is a big problem to deal with.
So this is like 36 hours?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely like a 2-day build, right?
Exactly.
So you print it really slow, lower temp or high temp?
Like very
I'm
slow.
Sure you've optimized on experiments to
but you have to taper the temperature as you print.
Really?
So you have to print the first few layers at specific settings, and then you have to change that as you go up in order to get it to adhere and get it to stay adhered.
Yeah. And then to get it to form.
Yeah, and then you print all those at different speeds as well.
Well, and this is fantastic. There's no support structure.
No support. Yeah.
Inside of it.
Exactly.
It's so fun. And then what applications make this material so desirable for like people that are looking for prototypes specifically with this kind of material?
Polypropylene, it's milk jugs are made out of it. And so one of the great things is blow molded tooling. If you're making a custom bottle or something like that, we can actually FDM print a polypropylene bottle that is watertight out of the actual material. And a lot of medical device stuff, we do a lot of stuff with living hinges and flexures, where polypropylene is really the best material for that.
So you could simulate all that for them, prototyping perspective. Because what's the alternate for them? Do they have to get it molded or machined?
You would either injection mold it. Polypropylene is really difficult to machine because it's so gummy and soft. So you would either injection mold it, or you use a fake one. So there's always like ABS light.
Yeah. But then your material properties are often doing testing.
And then they don't last and they're not real. And exactly. Yes. And with us, with cytotoxicity and all these other medical device testing things, it's really nice to have the actual material. And we actually have a filament extrusion line here too. So
that's right.
We can take plastic pellets, make our own custom filament, and we've done things with that, like some catheters have barium sulfate embedded in the plastic, so they're radio opaque.
Oh, really?
And so we'll actually do custom catheters with the barium sulfate filled at a prototype level, and that's the kind of stuff that people aren't really doing, but it's really value add when you need it.
That's so cool. You have so many awesome niches. Anything else that you build or make that is interesting? It probably feels normal to you, but like nobody out here is doing it. No, you're good. Yeah. It's a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Okay, let me see what else I got. So we got brick and mortar, creative capabilities. The flow of here is really fun. So like what led you to design and lay it out the way that you have? And I know you said it evolves for every project as well.
It does evolve. Everything's on wheels. The way I set it up and the way that I work, rather than have 100 tabs open on one computer, I have one tab open on lots of computers. And those computers are set up at the different stations. And so I have a milling machine computer, I have a couple 3D printing computers, I have my main computer, I have the studio computer. And so as I work, I kind of go from station to station and do the next thing. Yeah. And these things are often related. And so I learned this, excuse me, there's like a management thing where the guy I worked with at Thoratech, it's like we work in a cubicle and then the printer's over there, and so you get up 10 times a day to go to the printer and scan. And he read a management thing where if you just put the printer right next to your thing and you just optimize your own workflows personally, and it seems ridiculous now, everybody has a printer and but each person is working twice as efficient. It really adds up. And so rather than build this space around that methodology, this space is really built around the person. And basically having different workstations and being able to go between each of those workstations as quick as possible and then leave each of one of those operating. So it's really kind of built around the engineer rather than a lot of other workspaces that are.
Well, I loved watching you work on this because you were going between like cutting things, doing 3D prints in parallel, working on circuitry, soldering. The whole flow is really neat.
Yes.
You feel it.
And it's time-based. I do the thing that takes the longest first and then trickle down rather than the thing that is in the room I'm in particularly.
Yeah, exactly. That's so cool. And then also location is crazy for here. So you're 2 blocks from the San Francisco Giants Stadium.
Yes.
And then all of downtown is probably like a 25-minute walk away.
Yes.
And then do you also consult clients, I'm guessing, on like Mountain View and Sunnyvale in that area
Yeah.
too?
Yeah.
So it's like
It's a great community.
an hour away. But
There's
depending
been
on
like
traffic.
yeah, exactly. There's been like
Yeah.
a real robotics boom in the neighborhood even here.
Santa Clara's out here too.
Yeah, exactly. And there's just like there's 4 or 5 robotics companies that started in the last 6 months in the 3-block radius around here.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, that close?
Yes, constantly. And then we always joke that as the companies, you start in San Francisco as a startup, and then as you mature, you move down the peninsula.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so it's perfect because I have access all the way down the peninsula, all the way till the companies get fully
You got
mature.
different
So,
clients at
yes,
different stages of
yeah.
funding and tech. That's so beautiful. I think we're on the home stretch, Fred. Let me see what else I have on my notes. Yeah, so this was 3.5 weeks from like white paper idea to actual robot. Do you have any examples of actual clients you've worked with where you've gotten something robotic turned around way faster than they expected?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is one of my favorite stories because they named the robot after it left. So a really, really wonderful client and friend of mine, John, reached out, and he had built, they were doing some diagnostic research that was part of some NIH or Department of Health grant research at a university, and they needed to do a specific motion to a catheter, and until then they had been doing it all manually, and that was creating some problems for us. So he like you had a very specific problem statement that we want you to move this thing in this way with these bounds, and in their case they had a very, very specific and difficult cost target. And I agreed to do it because I wanted to.
Yeah.
And we worked through the process and designed the entire robotic system, integrated it, built it. And we actually, 2 of the folks we mentioned earlier in the podcast helped me with that. Of course. And it's quite elaborate. There's 5 axes of motion, and then there's these little like magical fingers that come in and hold the catheter and then move out of the way and do all this stuff. And then so we designed, built, integrated it all, met the cost target, shipped the robot out. And I think that whole process took 2 months from beginning to end. And the way we were able to hit the cost targets is there's a lot of components like pulleys and gears and things like that you would normally buy from a supplier. And in a lot of those, for this one, we 3D printed them. We designed them and 3D printed them ourselves. And so in that way, and again, because we have this infrastructure, we're able to basically trade design time for hardware. Yeah. And so, and we get to choose if we can make it cheaper here, we do. Yeah. And so we did that. We shipped the robot out, and then they later named the robot. They gave it a name. And then my favorite part is that client then ended up leasing the robot to another person who needed that same thing. And then those people became a client. And so my favorite part is these people are doing things with these robots that I would never have dreamed of. Yeah. And it's really amazing. And it's really an empowering technology for them. And it's empowering for me, for them to do these amazing things.
Yeah, to be a part of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And I have just a couple lingering questions kind of around that as well as we wrap up. So like, what principles drive you or inspire how you work? We've talked a bit about reverence for the craft, but what other principles do you bring into your work, your collaboration with partners, how you lead your teams?
There's a poem that I was taught in college. It's called the Bridge Builders poem. And
you're giving me homework.
I won't try to recite it, but the gist of the poem is there's an old weary traveler on a road, and he comes across a break in the trail that crosses a river, and he crosses the river at great cost, and then he stops and contemplates, and he chooses to build a bridge across the river. And then another traveler comes and says, "Why did you build the bridge?" Yeah. And he explains why he built the bridge. And then he built the bridge for the next traveler. Yeah. And so everything I've ever designed, I've ever built, or ever been responsible for, my guiding principle is to do right by the next person that follows me. Yeah. The next poor soul that has to pick up my work product and make it work better, they're the ones that I owe, because they're the ones that I was in that path. And and people built the bridge for me before. And so it's really easy to lose track of that when we're up against deliverables, cost, budget, all those things. But in my experience, none of those mean anything if you don't do that. So my real guiding principle is, if we're designing a medical device and we're just bringing a product to market, the people that follow us need to be able to do that too. They need to be able to bring that product, quality, and the design intent to market with the information that I've written down for them. I don't think there's anything else more important than that.
I've inherited terrible code
Yes.
throughout my career,
Yes.
right? Like,
Yes.
I've inherited terrible designs. I
Yes.
remember early in my co-op, it's a beautiful principle.
Thank you.
Early in my co-oping experience or interning at J&J, I was in charge of, we were having this failure for clip appliers where they would have malformed clips. So you have these titanium clips and you have these jaws that deform it, and it refeeds multiple clips after each one for ligation of blood vessels. And I was trying to understand like the original design intent of this. And we were also having issues in production with silicone. They would put a silicone sealant that they'd squirt into it, and they thought maybe that was impacting the clip form or something. And they're finding it leaking and just all kinds of issues. They're like, why is this thing in there? And I remember sitting down with the original design engineers that had built it in the 90s, like in 91, 92. And I was born in 92, so it was a great conversation with them. I was like, you were working on this before I was born. And I never made them feel good, but like they had built that Ethicon business for 2+ decades at that point. I was like 21. And I was trying to understand why they put that in. And they're like, well, we originally looked at having a foam sealant in there, but Medtronic had all the patents, so we had to put a liquid sealant, and that's why we squirt silicone. And I thought it had some crazy
So
impact.
engineering reason.
Yeah, and they said if there wasn't anything in there, we found that it was just shooting clips off the end. Like we had to slow down the return automation of the system, and we couldn't put a natural like leak prevention kind of foam in there. So that's why you're having issues with the silicone. Depend like how long it's sterilized, it's more or less viscous and running into all kinds of production issues. Like it's because of all that was left behind. Like the bridge they built was they gave us a device that we've commercialized for 20+ years and it's been healing. But at the same time, there wasn't those little insights in the documentation because you're not going to write that in a design history file necessarily.
Exactly.
So there's always this forensics because people are moving so fast, solving problems, and they had to like dig back 20 years of like, why did we put that in there? You know, but you're passing the best thing on that you can to whoever comes after you.
Exactly.
So remarkable. I love that. I've never thought of bridge building that way, like through that story. That's cool. Because I like bridging people together, but I haven't thought about preventing someone else from navigating the same pain. You said it came at great cost to cover the river.
Yes, exactly.
So what is the great cost you've navigated in your career journey?
All the soft stuff, the soft skills stuff. So how to sit down in a room and read everybody and see who is going to be a problem and who's not. How to weigh different options when they seem the same in your mind. How does VC work? How does business banking work? Like all these kind of like big contextual things that if you come from a certain one of those verticals, you really assume everybody knows. But especially in tech, there's so many layers to the work that we do when it comes to VCs and all these different ways
the
that
patients as well,
and patients
and the downstream
caregivers and
strategy.
ISO standards and feathering all that in together is just really, it's a challenge to have enough depth at all of those to be able to bring them into a cohesive worldview. And so a lot of what I try to do is distill my worldview now into ways that could have been explained to myself 10 years ago, 20 years ago, something like that.
That's beautiful. And what are you most excited about in the years to come? It could be the industry or you or both.
I have been most fulfilled when I've taken people under my wing and then they become amazing engineers and then they go on to make incredible things. And that's very, very meaningful to me. The other thing even more meaningful to that is is when they take something that I worked on and make it so much better than I ever thought it could have been. And I love that so much. And so for me, I would hope as as the world and time progresses, we move forward. It's more of that, like more other people stewarding things that I've done to make them even greater, and then me focusing on basically catalyzing that and just helping those people make things. Because I think that's how we spread this, right?
And I know you're cooking up something in stealth mode, and I was curious if there's anything you can share loosely or not about what future looks like. And you don't have to. It's up to you. It's okay to not be able to disclose
I wish I
things.
could. I'd love to.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun to know that things are happening.
What I will share, no matter what, is more medical devices and more surgical robots are going to be coming to market.
That's awesome.
And they're going to be really cool.
No, that's perfect. That is, we can leave it at that, which is fantastic. And then the last question I always ask guests is just, what is one big brain idea you would like to leave folks to kind of sip on?
Well, interesting. I think I had this at the end of a talk I gave recently about designing an artificial heart, about designing complex systems, and I think the thing that I focus on, number one, when I'm working on these things, is burning down risk. So early on, identify what technical risks exist, and the temptation is, okay, here's a list of things we need to do. Let's do the easy stuff first. And that's exactly the wrong way to go about it in this business. And so the big brain idea that I'm always focusing on is, what are the risks to what we're doing? How do we burn those down? And how do we turn that into a moat? And then everything else kind of falls out.
You said turn it into a moat?
Turn it into
like
a
for
moat,
protection,
like an
around
IP
the
moat.
project.
Like, how do we turn that into something that we can do that other people can't?
Beautiful. Yeah.
And so many people focus on the 70% that is obvious that we need to do, and really that's just
a product.
Packaging,
Yeah,
really.
yeah.
And really, when we're focusing on what makes these things actually meaningful and transformative in these industries, it is taking new technical risks, burning them down, and then creating moats about them. And at a high level, that's what we do. And so I would encourage people to do that and see what comes of it.
That's awesome. Ian, thank you so much for the time. Thank you for all the work you've put into my business and investing in Sunday Sips. And I'm excited for folks to get more proximity with you and your story and Nerdian. And I've just gleaned so much from you over the last couple of days spending time with you. So I'm excited to work with you more in the future too.
Likewise, thank you so much.
Awesome.
It's been such a pleasure.
So, hey, friend, you have made it to the end of this remarkable dialogue with Ian McEachern, a reverence for the craft. And I'm a little bit sad that it's almost over. But before you leave, I want to share 5 big brain ideas from Ian that I was able to synthesize. I had a running list of around 15, so it's really hard to compress it. And I want to share some of my thoughts on how I've applied these to my own journey as an innovator and entrepreneur. So, number 1, and this was one that was really interesting because I had heard the same compliment. We'll use the word compliment spoken over me from a coach I had. Ian creates this halo effect, and a halo effect is this kind of brightness in this life that causes you to stand out and to attract others to you. And there's just a charm and a kindness in the way that he innovates. I think one of the lines, and I'll repeat it here, that's very candid, is it's very rare for someone within my industry, at least from the people I've crossed paths with, to reach the level he's reached technically and not be an asshole. And I say that because there's quite a few of them that I won't name that are wicked, wicked smart and deeply capable and ruthless and confrontational and needlessly mean at times. And they carry their stress into the craft. And there's a lightness, this halo effect around Ian, where he attracts kind creatives that want to partner with him. There's a great energy there. I'm sure that we're going to be collaborating in the years to come on different projects just based on the nature of Moonlight Medical and Nerdian. And yeah, it was kind of a reminder to me to not think about just what we do, but how we do it. and the energy and the atmosphere or environment that creates around us, because there was a calmingness to being in his presence in his design studio, collaborating all the meetings we've had remotely and in person. And I want to carry that into work with my clients as well. So that's number one. Number two, oh, this is so good. Just simply leverage. Ian is a great business owner. He's progressed from, and for those of you who've never done your own business, like a service-based business, he's progressed from operator to owner. And an operator is the doer. So for instance, when I make a Sunday Sips podcast, I do all the pre-production planning. I go out and I do the shoot. I do all the edits, and then I post it out and I schedule it. And right now I am an operator of this aspect of my business. Eventually I will have different people doing some of those pieces so I can do the highest leverage tasks. But because I'm in the ramp up, I got to get enough upfront revenue to jump off a third shift at Amazon and go all in, which is awesome. And when I kept asking questions with Ian, not only in this podcast, but outside of it at different meals, he's done a great job at creating the right incentives for really smart people in different locations globally to partner with him on projects in the Bay. And he can also get great arbitrage because he's got team members all over the place. So he doesn't have to pay everyone San Francisco prices, but it's still really great for them financially. And one of the most beautiful aspects of this, he built out a team of like 80 people in Oris. But I think even more compelling was the Maestro work. Like they had a high fidelity prototype that was originally developed, and they needed to take it to FDA submission and go through all the detailed design. And he hired 3 guys. And those three plus him were the hardware team. There's also electronics and software and other things, right? There's, I think, a group of like 40 people at Moon, but off of a $4 million budget total end to end for people and equipment and everything else, like that was the raise they were on. They got a robot through FDA in under a year, which is insanity to someone like me who worked in Ottawa for almost a decade. And we've just done first in humans, but we still haven't commercialized the solution. And there's a lot of politics and complexity there that we don't have time to unpack Ottawa. If you want to learn more about that, go through my page and find a conversation on Build to Buy with Steve Bell, and we waffle through that for 2 hours. So leverage is something that I've continued to try to ask myself almost every morning I wake up. Like, what is the highest leverage thing for me to do? Is it leads flow? Is it content? Is it delivery from my clients? And you're always finding new ways to get the most out of what you put in. And I capture that energy from Omar and Khateeb and from this discussion with Ian, which are both phenomenal business owners in the MedTech spaces. Number 3, trust is gold plated. There was something so powerful about holding that gold plated panel in my hands and seeing the signatures of every person that had put their mark on Maestro for probably one of the hardest, fastest, craziest years of their life and brought excellence. And then for me to 2 years later be able to sit down with clinicians on behalf of Moon Surgical's Unscripted series and have dialogues around the problems that Maestro solves and to see the system, to see the works of their hands. And it's that mark of an engineer. In some engineering contexts, not all, sometimes when you graduate, they'll give you this ring that goes around your pinky on your right hand, if you're righty, or your left, if you're lefty. And the idea is that anytime you're signing a document, you'll feel the ring hit the table and you'll hear that clink. And it's to remind you kind of the ethics and the code that you bring into the work you do, that you are a trusted professional. And what I loved is at Johnson & Johnson, I couldn't just go through documentation to find everyone's signatures and put them on a thing. But because it's a small startup and he got the approval from executive leadership and Ann, who's the CEO, like he was able to do something so special and literally put their signatures into the final robot. And that trust with that team will carry for years or decades on future projects as people go back into circles with each other. So he has such a long-term approach to the way that he works and the way that he partners with different people. That's something I want to carry with me as well. Okay, number 4, casters and tube sets. It is the simple crap that can destroy platforms and projects. And while a lot of startups have a tendency to try to acquire cheap talent, sometimes doing a larger race to bring in a few heavy hitters that really know the territory you're about to traverse creates massive leverage. Like those 4 right people had the foresight to realize we need to kick off casters first. That's the only way we get this thing out in a year. At Johnson & Johnson, we had tons of project managers looking at every subsystem of the robot, trying to squeeze days and months and weeks out of our schedule. But there's also just something really beautiful about people that have a deeper knowing and have done it before, whereas so many of us within J&J had never done it before. So we got burned multiple times for things I won't disclose. And the tube set was a case study I had where I was looking between two different potential suppliers for a stealth mode bid. And one of them just called that out explicitly. And that was one of there's multiple reasons I chose it, but that was one of the main indicators of like, there's a level of detail and experience here that I'm not getting from the other side. And I also could just tell they wanted it more because they had done it. And like that, there's something there. So figure out if you're early in your career, because we have some youngins here in MedTech, get good at something. Like that's the simplest career advice I can give you is don't be afraid to spend 5 or 10 years getting good at a couple things so that you really have the full knowing that you've worked from front end, pre-concept selection, fuzzy fog, understanding unmet needs and trying to design quickly in that space into the detailed design where you're finding the requirements, designing to it, testing against it, doing your design verification, your design validation, and then getting it launched, stabilized, and into life cycle. Like work the full continuum because it allows you to see casters and tube set moments when you jump into a different context. It makes you far more valuable either in consulting or when you're looking for a new job. Okay, and the final one, and this is a simple one, it's just a reverence for the craft. Ian cares so deeply for the work he does. I remember asking him, we were talking about shipping because he made this podcast studio for me in 3 weeks, right? And he's like, oh yeah, I'll just ship it to you. You don't have to fly out with it right now because he wanted to make it better. And I was just so humbled, like, you're gonna pay to ship this box? It's gonna be so expensive, even though he's put thousands into it already. Like that's just my normal human non-business brain talking. And I remember asking him about shipping. He's like, well, yeah, the most I've ever spent on a shipping gig was like 120,000, just some crazy number he spent on shipping for these installs that they were putting in Times Square, and the penalties for submitting that late were so severe that they worked through the night multiple times. They like put these big pallets on a plane and shipped them to New York, and then they loaded another part of it onto a truck and just drove it clear across the country. Like the end-to-end shipping cost was 100K or something. I can't remember the exact number. I don't even know if he talked about this in the podcast or if it was an anecdote, but it was that care of these installs in New York. They already have ads that are committed for certain timelines, and I'm just going to bite the cost because we couldn't get it done as we intended, as fast as we intended. So I'm going to pay that out to make sure it gets there when it needs to. And I'm sure from the time taking his jewelry craftsman experience into those LVADs in the early labs and like working in the machine shop and then working on engineering, like there's this care, there's something sacred by how Ian approaches the craft. And I want to carry that into my vocation as well. So, friends, I hope this is helpful. I hope that there is one big brain idea that's truly meaningful to you. Let me know in the comments what it is. Send me a DM about it. I love hearing about these conversations and how they're helpful. I love hearing who you're forwarding it to and how it could help. And then make sure you check out some of the links to connect with Ian on LinkedIn. If you want to join a community on Skool, I'd love to connect with you there as well. And if you think you're a good guest for Sunday Sips, like just explore the waitlist. It might not be the perfect timing for you, but it'll help you understand the business I'm building towards with Moonlight Medical, the team I'm scaling up in these spaces, and how I could serve you either now or in the future with Moonlight Medical. But appreciate you all. Keep changing the world naturally. You can sip on that.
Well, thank you. I'm completely humbled, and I'm pleased to be here. And I support people who deserve supporting, and I think you deserve supporting. And you work hard, and that is one of the tenets that I've had for my entire career, which is work with people who want to really put the work in. So I appreciate what you do.
Oh, it's so beautiful. Thank you for the time and all the wisdom and just your joy and passion for these patients that you're advocating for. I'm really excited to see where Vessel moves next in the years to come. I'll be following you on LinkedIn naturally. And just again, I commend you for all the work you've done for the last years to actually see this close to market. And I trust that it's going to be a massive success and help a lot of people. So appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Joe. Thank you so much for your time and for having me on. It was a really amazing experience. So super glad to be here and thank you very much.
Humbled and touche, by the way. Like, I love everything you said about me, but I think it is me who is watching you in awe of everything you have built, that you are creating, the spaces that you're creating, how you're amplifying unique voices that are not in the spaces you have been in professionally. It's been a joy to watch. When I talk about you to my friends and peers, it's like, you know what Joe did today? You know what video? You know what content? You know what he dared to share and talk about? So I talk about you in a very loving, nurturing, almost motherly way because I'm so proud to see what you're creating and building. So it's my joy.
Gosh, it's so humbling.
Thank you, Joe. And I just have to just speak about you again for a second before we end this, which is just I'm just so impressed by your humility. I'm just so impressed by your ability to put your ego aside and listen and learn and really process what someone's saying to you. I think that's like a really rare gift. I'm so impressed by your intentionality, your thoughtfulness, and just your listening. You just have a listening for people that I think is so beautiful. And it's an honor to know you. You push me, you challenge me. I'm afraid of it. You sit with me in that. And I just can't wait to see where this continues to take you.
For sure. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm humbled really that our path crossed in the last couple of months. You bring very positive and growth mindset to this industry. With everything that you've been through, let's say probably like 90% of the population would be just knocked down, and you're just like keep coming. So you continue what you do, and obviously you do it well. So thank you for everything you do for our community and for the world.
Was it fun? Did I do okay? Everything
It was awesome. It was awesome. I loved it. Yeah, I think you've been one of the few that have actually captured the entirety of my career in a succinct conversation. So very rare.
Dude, this means so much to me. I've put a ton of time into it. I haven't worked through all 414 of your podcasts, so I apologize for my prep.
Dude, you don't have to prep for anything. Just start asking questions and we're gonna have a conversation, have fun. All good.
Cool. All right, so yeah, in my intro, just for context, because it trips people up sometimes, I run through like 3 reasons I'm so excited. So it's all the hook and retention.
Oh yeah, I know. I've watched your show.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's so humbling. Okay.
Oh my God, my kids are gonna love this. Yes.
So hey friends, I just got a box from one of my clients, Ian McEachern from Nerdian, and I've never done an unboxing video before because I've never had someone sponsor my content and send swag or whatever is in here. So I'm very excited. So I have a knife. I'm gonna rip this open, but I do want to show off. His box is super cool. He's got an astronaut on it, and it's got a lovely quote from Neil Armstrong. I am and ever will be a White Sox pocket protector, nerdy engineer, born under the second law of thermodynamics, steeped in the steam tables. Oh my God, I forgot about steam tables. That was so hard. In love with three body diagrams, transformed by Laplace and propelled by compressive flow. As an engineer, I take a substantial amount of pride in the accomplishments of my profession. So I'm gonna rip this open. I'm gonna use 2 hands because I'm not a pro at this. So pretend you have a perfect top view. I'll be right. Okay, he also has custom Nerdian tape, which is super cool. So let's see what's in the box. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. What? Okay, that's awesome. I need nerdy stuff, so we have Stonehenge wearing a hoodie. Fantastic. By the way, this is all the timestamps I'm taking because I'm in the middle of Ian's episode right now, trying to edit it. Oh my God, stay awesome. What? 1 second, I gotta look at it. Okay, this is legendary and awesome. He sent me a Costco gift card to stay awesome and go shopping for my family, which is super cool. And then this is a Maestro, like Letterman jacket, woven badge of an eagle, a chicken, and the moon. I'm assuming Maestro 1.0 is a badge for working on the Moon Surgical Maestro. which is so cool because I got to sit down with surgeons on behalf of Moon and film the unscripted series, interviewing clinicians, talking about their pain points and where Maestro provides value. So I'm an external consultant that got to touch something that was built and just help amplify it. So to get the 101 is super cool. Okay, let's see what else is in here. And a whole bunch of awesome business cards that I can hand out when I network on behalf of him. Oh my God, my kids are gonna love this. Yes! He's got a little moon. This is so nice. Oh my gosh, I have needed nerdy stuff to put behind me because my kids had Legos there and then my 2-year-old just destroyed them. This is so awesome. What else do we have? This pose. I feel like there's a joke for this Darth Vader that I don't fully know because I'm trying to recall the movies and I don't remember him ever doing this. Like the pose of Darth Vader I remember the most is him Emperor throwing the Emperor while he's getting electrocuted. Is that the no pose? The no! I think it is. Okay, I gotta look that up. There's a meme in that. And then we have a beautiful dragon. So for those of you who don't know Ian and what he does with Nerdian, he's got like $500,000 worth of engineering equipment in his lab, which is fantastic. So when we were working together, he made a podcast in a box, a robotic podcast in a box studio. This is so nice. Oh my gosh. And he is cranking multiple printers in parallel, trying to make all these fixtures for GoPros to sit on so I could have different perspectives, pull it in a Pelican case. And then we shot the whole episode on it. And I am so close to finishing these edits. Where are we? Oh no. I can't do this with one hand, but I'm like, I don't know, probably an hour out from getting it released. Okay, what other thing in here? Oh, I got another dragon. Oh my gosh, my kids are gonna love this so much. Oh, it's so fun. Oh, cool. It's so funny because I was thinking about sending him some swag. I'm not gonna tell him what it is. Okay, classic Army Man. We have the Sunday Sips Surgeon logo, freshly printed. Oh, I was eyeing these. He has these screwdrivers with a little ball joint in them. I forgot how you actually pop them in and out. It's got living hinges. I can't do it with one hand, so that you can pull this out and rotate it. I can't do it. One second. I got it sorted, but I can't do it with one hand. But he's got these living hinges in here, so it'll actually grab onto any standard drill bit, and I can't pop it back in with one hand, but it's super cool. And then we have some more Army men in here. This is so fun. Did he print these? No, I don't think so. Those are, oh, but he has an injection molder. I bet he injection molded these. Shoot, this is all. Okay, so the dark green ones are made in China. These ones are skateboarders. I think one of them's like a zombie. Although I almost want to feel like these are Tony Hawk characters, but I'm not fully sure. But I think he made some of those. And then we have enduring rings. Oh yeah. So I think he makes these as well. One second. All right, and naturally being the smart engineer I am, I put it on my pinky and I can't get it off. So I get to figure that out. But we got some 3D printed rings. And I think that's it. But Ian, thank you so much, friend. For those of you who don't know Ian McEachern's fantastic. I'll put a link to his Nerdian website. He also is, I think, the only injection molder within the San Francisco Bay Area. So if you're trying to do some prototypes, he's fantastic. I would say this is not a sponsored video, but it is a sponsored video because he's one of my first awesome clients. And he sent me a box and I decided to unbox it, which is cool. Appreciate you. Keep changing the world. Keep building awesome stuff. And I'm going to take this off before it breaks the circulation of my pinky.